cultfigga TV. Revolutionary salute. Revolutionary salute. Like, share, subscribe. Welcome to the House of Revolution. You know I'm your humble host, the Yamina Revolution, and Kamala Harris caught the big lie, the historical lie about her history. Before we get into that, be sure to wipe your feet. That means hit the like button, like, share, subscribe. Let everybody know cultfigga is live. We got, we still in the morning. We got morning revolutionary classes, y'all. Salute family, salute king, queen. Let's get into it. Kamala busted. Salute to Candace Owens. She has done great work. She needs a Pulitzer Prize for this detective work that Kamala Harris cannot continue to hide from.
I am absolutely giddy today, you guys. I did it. I spoke to Kamala's uncle officially. And by the way, he's a gem. 10 out of 10. I really wish that he was running for president instead of her because he comes across as a very honest man. I'm going to tell you all about that conversation and how it's now led me to many more questions. So many more questions that I have about Kamala and her true heritage. Also, she's once again been asked about her racial identity. This happened just 3 days ago. And suddenly she's a little iffy on the answer. Kamala and me are now in a very particular kind of relationship. I'm like Maury and she's essentially my guest. I'm asking her a question. Kamala, during your run as president, we asked you if your genealogy was actually Irish Indian.
You said no. The lie detector determined that was a lie.
Oh, welcome back to Candace.
I said, come on, let's continue to get exposed. They can't hide from this information.
Where to begin? Okay, so 2 days ago or 3 days ago, Kamala was asked again about her Black heritage, and suddenly she is getting a little iffy on the details. You can see she does not want to engage in the conversation, and the answer that she actually gives is fantastic. It is just fantastic, and we need to now pick it apart. So she appeared on a show called All the Smoke, and she was interviewed by the hosts, which are former NBA players Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. I want you to pay very close attention to her answer here. Take a listen.
What do you think when you hear people kind of questioning just the fabric of who you are?
Well, one, I don't listen to it.
Okay.
I'm really clear about who I am, and if anybody else is not, they need to go through their own level of therapy. That's not my issue.
Their issues, right?
My mother was very clear. She was raising two Black girls to be two proud Black women, and it was never a question. You know, it's funny because over the years, journalists, some, not most, will want to talk about it. And I say, okay, if you want to have this.
And it's really crazy that they tried to let her get away with this. Her mother is from a particular caste. She's from a particular caste. India has a caste society. Very racist. Very racist. That caste society that her mother is from, very racist. Very racist. Don't like Black people like that. It's impossible that her mother would have ever tried to teach her to be a strong Black woman. How her mother knowing strong Black women and was never taught about Black women. So it's just crazy that they was letting her get away with that lie.
This conversation, I'm prepared to have it, but sit down and get comfortable for a few hours. If you want to start talking about race in America, you want to talk about the 1/8 rule. You want to talk about what it means in terms of who you are perceived to be and the impact that can have on the rest of your life, regardless of who you actually are in terms of your God-given capacity and the rights that you have and should have. So, you know, I don't mess with that. I think that's other people trying to figure some stuff out that they got some issues. They got to.
I don't mess with all that old hood ghetto girl crap that she dropping on them brothers. They should be ashamed of herself. That people getting tired of that. She that's cosplay. She think that's how she's playing a role of a Black woman. She think Black women, that's how she think Black women act.
Yeah, deal with it.
Wow. So she just doesn't answer the question at all. right? So before we had her really leaning into being black, now all of a sudden she's not, she doesn't even mess with that. I don't mess with that. I don't even mess with that. They need to go to therapy. She's pulling this Freudian technique. Obviously, you know, I've spoken to you about Freud, who was a disgusting human being who essentially gaslit women who were actually being abused by their fathers. So what she's doing is this exact same Freudian technique of gaslighting people by being like, actually, you need therapy. The problem is you. The problem is actually you for asking the question. No, Kamala, we're asking the question because you made this a theme in your bookie book, which we're going to get to in a little bit, okay? So you don't get to now just not address the question whatsoever. Put yourself in her shoes, okay? I'm going to put myself in her shoes. I'm running for president of the United States, okay? And these questions keep popping up about whether or not I am black. Do you know how simple it would be to simply answer the question? List your black relatives in 4 seconds. I would be like, this is my grandma, this is my grandpa. Suddenly she's a little iffy on the details here. Why didn't she just say, yes, obviously my grandmother is Beryl. Here's a picture of her. She's black. I'm disgusted with the people that are even calling this into question. Here's my great grandmother, Iris Finnegan. I am obviously black. Instead, she goes, oh, do you really want to talk about it? That's what I say. These shows. Do you really want to talk about race? Do you really want to talk about the 1/8?
Salute to our family, our revolutionary brother Garrett Marshall for the donation to the war chest. Revolution is a way of life. Absolutely appreciate the love, family. Salute.
Rule. I mean, how dare she? And the answer is yes, Kamala. Actually, I would like to talk about it. Yeah, I'm actually totally up for talking about the 1-drop rule, the 1/8 rule. Let's discuss history. That's what those journalists should have done. That's what those former NBA players should have done, not giving her a free pass. I would have been like, no, ma'am, name your ancestors. And why are you bringing up the 1/8 rule at all? Let's talk about the history here, okay? The 1-drop rule was actually a legal doctrine in the United States that was used as a means of racial classification, okay? It really dates back to the antebellum period in Virginia, where people of color were considered legally white if they had less than 25% African ancestry. So we're talking about something that was pre-Civil War, but then the classifications became especially relevant throughout Jim Crow in the South, obviously, because of segregation. So they're like, are you white or are you black? So they needed to know how to quantify whiteness and blackness. The laws were first officially codified in Tennessee as one of Virginia's racial integrity laws. They wanted birth certificates to just be very clear whether a parent was legally white or legally a Negro, so that it was known which laws in society you had to abide by. What about Indian Americans? Because strangely, she brings up her mom. You would think the first thing she would do would be to bring up her dad. Instead, she brings up her mom. She's like, my mom was very clear that she was raising 2 black women. Your mother is Indian, like fully 100% Indian. So the fact that the first person that you recall is a non-black person is suspicious. And regarding Indian Americans, just to be clear, in 1923, the Supreme Court decided in the United States versus Bhagat Singh Thind that Indians were classified as Caucasians, as they had been by anthropologists. They upheld that, but they also made it clear that they were not considered white. So that is probably the answer as to why her mother put Caucasian on her birth certificate. That was actually the legal classification for Indian women. Now, also regarding this 1-drop rule, Kamala Harris was never subject to it ever in her entire lifetime. She was born in California. Just to be clear, that was the very first state to end segregation, and they did that back in 1947. So they did it 7 years before the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus Education, which federalized desegregating all of the schools. So it actually infuriates me that she does this, that she essentially goes back and pretends that she's lived through something. Like, well, let's talk about the 1-drop rule. Why are we discussing the 1-drop rule? By the way, even if you were subjected to it, you probably would have passed, since none of your parents are listed as Negroes on your birth certificate. Like, what are you doing mining the history of Black people that came before you and who you are still refusing to name? You put them in a book once, but that was it. Now you don't want to talk about Grandma Beryl. What's up with that? Now you don't want to talk about great grandma Iris Finnegan. What is up with that? And by the way, as I was considering that, her upbringing and how strange it is that she keeps leaning into this idea, like she was born 2 years before my mother was born, and my mother didn't live through segregation. My mother didn't live through any of this stuff. These are not her memories. These are the memories of my grandparents. My grandfather lived through segregation. I'm going, why does Kamala keep doing this? Like acting like she grew up in the 40s and in the 50s with these sorts of memories. And then I remembered suddenly that she did this on stage a while ago, where she got almost teary-eyed and emotional talking about busing and desegregation. I'm going to roll that back for you just to jog your memory. Take a listen.
You also worked with them to oppose busing. And, you know, there was a little girl in California who was part of the second class to integrate her public schools. And she was bused to school every day. And that little girl was me.
Okay. Guys, so you watch that clip, okay? You're an American. You see she's getting a little choked up, and you can instantly assume that what she means is that she was like a Ruby Bridges. Yeah, like that little girl was me in second grade. I was a part of the second class to be desegregated. Like that instantly signals, given the emotionality of it, that she was a Ruby Bridges. Talk about mining Black history. Well, let me be clear. She intentionally misled people here to make them believe that she was a young Ruby Bridges. This is how disgusting and despicable this woman is. She wanted people to go back in their minds to all they learned about Ruby Bridges, the images of Ruby Bridges having to be protected by police as she entered into that school in Louisiana. She wanted people to go back in their minds to that. That's why she's getting all choky. She's like on the brink of tears. That little girl. So to be perfectly clear here, that little girl went to Thousand Oaks Elementary School in Berkeley.
That girl, her mama was rich. Her alleged Irish, Indian, Jamaican daddy was rich. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is Kamala need to get over herself, bro.
And far from that impression she's giving, she did not live through any desegregation or any real desegregation at all, because as I mentioned, the schools had already gone through that before she was born, literally before she was born in 1947. In fact, the school district had to issue a statement after that performance on stage. And this is what they had to put up on their website for clarification. They wrote, "There has been some confusion in the media and social media around the Berkeley schools and integration due to the fact that our high school was already integrated, as evidenced, for example, by high school yearbooks, which show children of many race and ethnicities at school together prior to 1968. In Berkeley, we only have one comprehensive high school, so it was integrated by default. Our elementary schools, however, reflected the racial composition of our neighborhoods, which, like many neighborhoods across America, reflected the history of segregation stemming from policies which restricted the opportunities of non-white residents." So then they go on, "We recently celebrated the 50-year anniversary of our voluntary busing plan." And you can find additional details here. So let me clarify to you what actually happened in her childhood. There was no desegregation effort like that she had to live through. She was not Ruby Bridges. Rather, what they realized was because of the past in which you had Black people all living in one neighborhood, and this was contributed sometimes because of like red line districting. You had Black people living in one neighborhood, you had white people living in one neighborhood. What ended up happening was that you had schools which were like majority Black and which were majority white. And so what they wanted to do in Berkeley was to be the first to offer a busing plan to turn that around, so that the buses would pick up students that lived far from the white school and bring them over there, so that the schools would be more evenly mixed. That's what she's describing. So after they put and implemented this busing plan, Kamala was the second or third class since they had implemented this busing plan. Nothing to do with desegregation, just an effort to say, okay, we're realizing now if people are just districted according to where they live, you're going to have these schools that are like 85% Black and some schools that are 85% white. That's what it is. So just thinking about the emotionality and how tricky she's being here, again, trying to allude to like some Ruby Bridges scenario, really makes me angry. It is just so unacceptable. I just can't stand this fraud. And it's so important to state, also that the one-drop rule was declared officially unconstitutional in 1967. That was just 3 years after Kamala was born. This is just not her childhood at all. Not her childhood at all. This is just what she does. She lies and she lies and she lies. But it gets better. It gets better. But first, I'm going to remind you guys about preborn, because Kamala is indeed the first vice presidential candidate to ever visit an abortion facility. And Tim Walz supported a bill in his home state which legalized the denial of life. Better, because yesterday I was going through her book that I downloaded. I downloaded that so that you didn't have to, because I wanted to send a picture of her grandma Beryl to someone. So initially, when we started looking into the story, my producer had downloaded the book. I had downloaded the book, but he had stumbled upon the picture of Beryl. So I hadn't actually flipped through the ebook that I had downloaded. And so remarkably, it was kind of the first time I was going to the picture segment looking for Beryl. And I realized Beryl's not in this book. I was going, wait, what's going on? This is her book. Where is the Beryl picture? And I said to my producer, like, did we make a mistake? Like, this is definitely in the book. He pulls his up. He has a picture of Beryl. Mine doesn't. I'm going, is this a different edition of the book? And yes, it was. There were actually 2 publications of the book. One in January of 2019. And then 5 months later, in May of 2019, they published what is known as a young readers edition. Basically, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's meant to be for younger readers, and it's typically more pictorial, right? So they want to change a couple of words, essentially kind of dumb it down to make it easier to read and include more pictures. Yet in this edition, they decided to remove pictures. And it's just, I guess, ironic that the pictures that they removed for the young readers later edition were pictures of Black Iris and Grandma Beryl. There were more pictures that were removed, but the family members were all still there, except for Black Iris and Grandma Beryl. I found that to be extremely interesting. But suddenly I realized that I had never flipped through the book that had more pictures than the edition that I was holding. And I started going through them, and you guys are not even going to believe just how diabolical Kamala Harris is. It was just, I'm going to have to just go through this calmly, because I am telling you, as a Black person, it's actually offensive how hard she tried to Blackify herself. And it made me think of the entire Emmanuel Macron, Brigitte Macron scandal, because the journalist that broke that story essentially said that what they do when they're running is they publish a book, and that is the legend that is established, essentially, because people in their minds think, oh, well, if it's in a book and a publisher agreed to publish it, HarperCollins published this book about Kamala, they must have fact-checked this, and all of this must be true. People have this wrong perception that if a book is published as nonfiction, that there was some effort of due diligence, which means that everything that you're reading is not fiction. So they do this, like it's like a rite of passage. I'm publishing this book, and I'm expecting everyone to just accept this as the legend of Kamala Harris. I'm going through these pictures, okay? And aside from Iris, aside from Beryl, she also decided to include some other, what I would describe as noteworthy pictures of herself. Like this one, where she writes, "Sporting my fro, summer of 1970. But basically, you just know when you go through this that they essentially sat down as a team and were like, we're creating the legend. We need you to be Black. Okay, this was published again in 2019. And they're like, we need that Black foot. Let's make it easy. Give me the blackest photos of you that you can possibly find. Like, to put the caption of her afro is just signaling to Black people, hey, I'm Black, which is ridiculous because there's so many other races that have afros. Puerto Ricans have afros. Spanish people have afros. Jewish people have afros. Mark, my director, is Jewish. He has an afro, okay? It is not like proprietary to Black people, but she's publishing this because, like, you're just supposed to look at the picture and go, oh, well, she's got an afro. I guess she's Black. She literally wrote that, okay? Then, of course, if you could imagine this team sitting down trying to process how to sell Black, you would go, well, Harlem, right? You got to put some pictures of Harlem here. And there are pictures of her in Harlem. Look at this photo. She just posts up right here, visiting my Uncle Freddie in Harlem. Harlem was always a magical place for me. Now, what's interesting about this picture is the man behind, I don't know if that's actually her Uncle Freddie, right? Like, that came to my mind. I'm like, is this just like a guy working on the side of the street and she's just like including him because this picture shows a Black man that's in Harlem and again signals to Black people that, like, she's with her uncle up in Harlem? Kind of feels that way. But then I realized that she featured some more pictures of her Black aunties and her Black uncles, and we see Uncle Fred again. Take a look at this photo. this is going to drive you guys crazy because I still can't believe it when I read it. So you see 3 obviously Black people in this photo. You would not question the authenticity of their Blackness. And the caption reads, "I'm blessed with an amazing family. I'll never be able to thank Auntie Chris, Uncle Freddie, and Aunt Mary enough for their constant encouragement and support. They always showed up for me, as they did here at a campaign event for my DA's race that we held at a San Francisco, you guessed it, jazz club, because, hey, we're talking Harlem, we're talking Black people, we're talking afros. Let's also post a picture of you in a jazz club with your aunties and your uncles. And like Black people will just accept that you only have all these photos because you're like super Black." But then I said, wait a second. She doesn't have an Aunt Mary or an Aunt Chris or an Uncle Fred. I've been deep in this woman's genealogy. Who are we talking about here? These people do not exist. And I said, is it possible that like somewhere in the book that she's alleging, probably assuming that no one is going to actually read through, she acknowledges that these aren't her real aunties and uncles? And the answer is yes, my friends. There's a passage about Aunt Mary and Uncle Freddie in this book, The Truths We Hold, which is really just the greatest trick ever played on Black America. She writes this: "My mother surrounded herself with close friends who were really more like sisters. My godmother, a fellow Berkeley student whom I knew as Aunt Mary, was one of them. They met through the civil rights movement that was taking shape in the early 1960s and was being debated and defended from the streets of Oakland to the soapboxes in Berkeley's Sproul Plaza. As Black students spoke out against injustice, a group of passionate, keenly intelligent, politically engaged young men and women found one another. My mother and Aunt Mary among them. They went to peaceful protests where they were attacked by police with hoses. They marched against the Vietnam War and for civil rights and voting rights. They went together to see Martin Luther King Jr. speak at Berkeley, and my mother had a chance to meet him. She told me that at one of these anti-war protests, the marchers were confronted by the Hells Angels. She told me that at another, she and her friend were forced to run for safety with me in a stroller after violence broke out against the protesters. But my parents and their friends were more than just protesters. They were big thinkers, pushing big ideas, organizing their community. Aunt Mary, her brother, my Uncle Freddie, my mother and father, and about a dozen other students organized a study group to read the Black writers that the university was ignoring." So you guys, what can I say here? I am being reduced to sound effects. She wrote this book and she starts the sentence with her family. She's visiting her family in Harlem. This is maybe she wrote, "I have the best family," and shows multiple pictures of an Uncle Fred that isn't her Fred. Why did she do this? It's not her uncle, okay? It's just not her uncle. It's her mom's friend. And she dedicates so much time to him and the protests. And she's dropping Martin Luther King. And she's dropping W.E.B. Du Bois. And she's dropping so many other people that are Black in this book. For what reason? Because she's performing. Because this is a sleight of hand. Because they quite literally likely sat around in a boardroom and they said, how can we make you Black? I want to see every photo of you ever taken. And I'm going to tell you what in people's minds will just read like Blackness. So we've got Ruby Bridges now in people's memory, being embedded in people's memory. Now we've got this idea of her marching aunties and uncles in Harlem. It's just so unacceptable. It is so unacceptable. After going through all these photos, I made a joke to my producer and director. I was like, oh, what's next? Is there going to be a picture of her just like eating collard greens and cornbread? Is she going to be like, this is me eating collard greens and cornbread? Her, I'm in Harlem. And they said back to me, no, she's done that. I said, no. I said, shut up. That's not true. She's not done that. There's no way. They said, yeah, no, there are clips of her speaking about collard greens. I said, I cannot believe this. Produce me the clip. And they did. Here it is.
I have a friend who had a Christmas party, Christmas Eve every year, and she asked me to make the greens for her party every year. And I am not lying to you that I would make so many greens that I'd need to wash them in the bathtub. I'm telling you the truth.
So how do you make your greens? Do you put turkey in them? Do you
Bacon.
Nice. My grandma
I do
used to put
bacon.
She puts
Garlic.
vinegar.
I put white vinegar.
Yes.
I do. So I start with, I slice up my garlic. Well, but no, first I chop up the bacon
fry it.
and get all that fat going. Then I put garlic, some chili peppers, and then a lot of water and a little chicken stock. And I let it go for a while before I put the greens in. And then, right, so you get that going and all that flavor. And then I put the greens in for a couple hours. Then I do vinegar. And then I cheat and do a little Tabasco.
No, that's okay.
Yeah, but Tabasco of all, like I like Louisiana hot sauce, but Tabasco has that right amount of vinegar. Yeah. And so that's how I do my greens.
I see why you get invited every year.
And she brought it up again at another event. Take a listen.
Hey, Marlon, so I know how to make a mean pot of greens. In fact, people used to ask me to make greens for them for Christmas. One year, I had so many that I had to wash that we ended up washing them in the bathtub. So I am not playing around.
Black America, listen to me. I'm speaking directly to you because I am not playing around either. If I catch you voting for this woman, I'm going to haunt you. I'm going to haunt you in your dreams. There will be nowhere that you can go where I will not haunt you. This is just, we have to come together. At some point in society, we have to come together to declare this unacceptable. Like, I don't care where you sit on the spectrum. This is the most not okay thing that I have ever seen in the history of politics. This is how she's shoring up black votes. She's going around talking about collard greens, putting in fake pictures of her uncles and aunties that are black while conveniently ignoring all of her aunties and uncles that are white. And people are just eating this up. Let me find that woman that was going, okay, to all that vinegar put into her call. Okay, let me find her. I'm going to haunt her. I promise you that. But of course, guys, let's get to me speaking to her uncle, because that actually happened. Like I promised you yesterday. I said I had a phone call. I was trying to wait for it to happen yesterday. Well, it happened last night. Part one of our phone call happened last night. We briefly spoke on the phone, I would say for about 10 minutes. And I first want to say just how much I liked this guy. I just had a feel like, okay, I'll be honest. I have a Caribbean bias. My former producer made it very clear to me that I have a Caribbean bias because she'd pitch me stories or like say like Rihanna did this. And I'd be like, I'm not going to say anything bad about Rihanna, or like Nicki Minaj. And she's like, but I have a Caribbean bias. This guy's got a Caribbean accent. My grandma had a very thick St. Thomian accent. So it was just like, I could sense his Caribbean calm. I can't explain to you. And I could just also sense that he was being incredibly honest and forthright. And he was speaking to me. And it was actually like very, I guess I would say just beautiful in a way, because he cared about this. He wanted to reach out because he cares so much about Vioris, and he doesn't want whatever is going on with Kamala to make people have this perception of Vioris. And I told him right away that it was never my intention for him to get inundated. So I want to be clear. My understanding is that it's the press calling, but I want to make sure that there are no Candace Owens viewers that are going out there calling any of these relatives that are still alive, because we can find information online, but we definitely should not be harassing her relatives who have nothing to do with her running, and in many cases don't even agree with her politics. Like this person that I spoke to is a Candace Owens fan, conservative, as many Caribbeans are conservative, because on the islands that it's just not a lot of wokeness. I'll leave it at that. Why are you gay kind of a vibe going on. You are gay. It's a little bit more of like an island vibe. Anyways, I just said to him, look, we're just trying to get questions answered about Kamala's heritage because of her father's paper. I said, I have a lot of questions about your brother, Donald Harris. I just am not understanding anything in this paper. And I went through the holes in it. I went through the fact that, he mentions this person growing up, like they all kind of grew up on a farm together, but you're asking the question, like Beryl married this person. Why is he trying to make it seem like everyone grew up as one happy family? Why didn't he even mention Vioris at all, which is kind of the dog that didn't bark? And I asked him directly if he knew the Miss Iris that he is referring to in this book, in the Miss Iris that Donald J. Harris is referring to in his piece, rather, who he says is Iris Ney Finnegan. Again, very strange, because Iris should have never been Ney Finnegan. Finnegan was her married name. And he said, I can't answer that. I don't know that name. I want to be very clear. He has a relationship with Donald. He is close with Donald. They grew up together. He considers Donald his full brother. He has no idea who Miss Iris Finnegan is. This is Donald's brother that we're talking about. So I said, okay, that's of course of some interest to me. I asked him why it is that he's even then mentioning this Miss Iris. And he told me that he wanted to clarify something which was of most importance to me. He wanted me to know that before Vioris and Oscar Harris got married, Oscar Harris already had 3 children, okay? One of them being Donald. Now, to be clear, he is younger than Donald, a lot younger than Donald, so he wouldn't know much about if there was some family secret. He would not be aware of it, but to the best of his knowledge, like this is what he was told, that they had 3 children before Vioris and Oscar got married. And I asked him, quite frankly, if he knew or heard of Beryl. He told me he does not know Beryl. Instant red flag to me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, how do you not know if you have a half sibling that you are close to and have been close to your whole life? How do you not know who their mom is? He said, I don't know who his mother is. You don't know who Donald Harris's mom is. The woman who started this entire thing, Beryl Finnegan, like the person who just flagged me as weird, something is not right here. We now know that Donald Harris's brother does not know him, okay? Like I said, he said that Oscar Harris had 3 children before he married Vioris. He mentioned that Donald was very close to them. He also said that Oscar Harris's children all had businesses. That Donald, when he was coming up, Donald was in university. They kept very close to him. He said that Donald has always been very, very private, and he doesn't like publicity. And I find that to be very interesting. What people, yeah, sure, there are some people who are exceedingly private, and there are some people who are exceedingly private because they have something to hide. And I, again, do not feel that Donald Harris was telling the truth about his upbringing. I think he gave some truths and kind of made it very murky in his Jamaican heritage piece, but some things that were objectively proven to be untrue. He told me that Kamala definitively knows Vioris, that he also knows her, that she visited Jamaica twice with her father, and that sometime after she had graduated college, she went down to Florida with her sister and she visited Vioris. So she had a relationship with Vioris. Unfortunately, Vioris did not make her book. And I think we know why Vioris did not make her book. Now, I have no reason not to believe the person that I spoke to. I just felt that he was being very authentic and he was there to simply clarify some things, and that he didn't know the answers to some things. He authentically didn't know. And if he is telling me something that is not correct, then the reason why those things are not correct is not because he's trying to lie, but it's because he is not aware of them. So it leads us again to more questions about Donald Harris. Who is this guy? Who is his mother? Where is Beryl? Okay, where is Iris Finnegan? Why won't Kamala, who felt so, I guess, close enough to Beryl and Iris to include them in their book, why won't she even mention them as an easy way to debunk what is being said? Why is she even mentioning the 1/8 rule? What are you talking about, Kamala? If you're telling us that your grandmother is Beryl, she looks pretty black to us, like that would make you more than 1/8 black. What's going on here? Why are we getting all iffy on the details? We've got a couple of lingering questions here, and I'll tell you what we are starting to think about. But first, I want to remind you to drink coffee, because we are not letting go of the story. You're going to need a lot of coffee. If you're going to drink a coffee, it should be 7 Weeks Coffee, because it is America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, 1 cup of coffee at a time. Well, and I can say by the visual, this woman does look like the Beryl that is pictured with Kamala, that I said looks like a 60-year-old woman. I'll show you the photo right here. Okay, so somebody came across a woman who has the same name, Beryl, who is still alive, very, very, very old. Now, this woman is not at all related to Kamala, judging by who her son is and doing that sort of a thing. She's not related to Kamala, but again, she has that same name. She's still alive, and we have confirmed that she is from that same town, that same place, Brownstown, Jamaica. So we know she would have been there at the same time. And like I said, she resembles the person that Kamala is trying to pass off as her grandma. Could this be the help Could this be a woman that they just took a picture with? We're going to explore that lead, but first, a bigger lead. Now I can just send all of you guys to hunt and figure things out. By the way, I'm depressed because next week I'm on vacation, which means that we're going to have to stop this. Like tomorrow will be the last day of the investigation before we have to pause for a week and come back after Columbus Day. But anyways, here is something that you guys can help with. So remember in Donald J. Harris's piece, he mentioned only a sister, despite the fact that he has like at least 5 other siblings. He only mentioned Enid Maud Harris. He just calls her Enid. We were able to find her because one of you guys sent us a file, and it is confirmed that Enid is the sister that Donald Harris had, which predates his Oscar Harris's marriage to Vioris. And it turns out that she is just a half sister. We were able to determine this because we found her marriage certificate where both of her parents' names are listed. I'm going to show that to you right now so you can see that Enid Maud Harris got married at St. Peter's Church. This was in New York. And that she married a man named Hugh Ashton Watts. Okay. You can see listed under her parents, we have Oscar Joseph Harris, and we also have Perline Curry. We cannot find Perline Curry, and we cannot find Hugh Ashton Watts. Now, both of these people would be dead today. Okay, so again, we're just asking you to crawl through online looking for documents to determine who these people are. It's like without a trace. We know that Enid is still alive. Obviously, Enid is very advanced in age. So do not call Enid and ask any questions. We are not okay with that. We are not here to harass elderly people. We're just looking for answers because there is a plausibility that maybe Perline Curry is his true mother that he's not telling us about. Maybe Perline Curry is Kamala Harris's grandmother and not Beryl, right? So again, we have questions here, and the fact that we can't find Perline Curry, we just want to know what race she is, what she looks like. That's really kind of the information that we're looking for. And again, a good start here is you can find Perline Curry, or if you can find Hugh Ashton Watts. And we know that they got married in New York. We know that they lived at least for a short time in the Bronx. We're sending you guys out to explore those leads as we continue to try to get to the bottom of Kamala's heritage, because I personally do not accept that I need therapy, as she says. If you are even asking a question, you need therapy. No. Like I said, we are only here because you sent out your media goons to go after Janet Jackson and to try to paint her as crazy. We're only here because we have now arrived at the stage where you've gone from bringing Megan Thee Stallion out to shake her butt. You're walking out to Beyonce. You're talking about collard greens. You're dropping fake Black relatives to kind of persuade people that you have this Black upbringing. You're talking about Harlem. You don't get to pull a 180 and pretend that it's irrelevant. Okay? Because you know when Trump was on stage and he said to you, look, I don't care whatever she is. Well, let me tell you, I disagree with him. I care. You've now caught my attention, okay? And common sense says to me that if any person was put in a seat and asked about their heritage and someone said, what do you think about these rumors that you aren't Black? All you would do is start listing your relatives that are Black and say how foolish it was. And she's not doing that. She's instead running Operation Gaslighting. And you know what? Shame on those people. Shame on Matt Barnes for not pushing her. Put her feet to the fire. You don't get to just mine Black history and Black pain to try to present yourself as the first Black female presidential candidate. It doesn't work like this. It's completely unacceptable. Nobody would have cared if you ran and you said, I am Indian Irish. Not a single soul would have cared. Okay? You did this. You did this, and we're not going to let it go because nobody messes with Janet Jackson. All right, guys, before we get into your
So Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, allegedly beat an ex-girlfriend and paid $80,000 in hush money to another. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, allegedly beating a former girlfriend years ago and paying $8,000 in hush money to another woman. Now, this guy is supposed to be the model husband and redefining masculinity and all of these things. He's supposed to be the anti-Trump. But I've never heard about Trump slapping the woman upside their head and all this and that. Now, you can say that the whole Stormy Daniels thing happened, but for some reason, Trump got prosecuted for that and Doug Emhoff has not. Now, some are going to say, well, hey, ABL, Doug Emhoff's not running for president. Well, his wife is, and doesn't that matter? He's going to be in the Oval Office. He's going to have some level of influence, as we see Jill Biden pretty much running the White House right now because Joe has retired but didn't quit, which is kind of a loophole that's interesting, but that's a different story, and I digress. Now, there's a lot I want to get into. We got videos, clips, everything. But first things first, let's take a look at this picture. Now, this is Doug Emhoff and Jill Biden. Yes, that's Joe Biden's wife and Kamala Harris's husband, sharing an interesting embrace. Now, this was during the 2023 State of the Union address. Why, oh, why are they kissing on the mouth? Okay, it wasn't like a deep, long, passionate kiss, but it was a kiss right there on the mouth. Now, I don't know about how y'all operate, but if I see a friend or a colleague, I'm not kissing them in the mouth. A hug and/or handshake is totally fine. We don't have to do all this. So can we get an explanation for that or no? Are we just pretty much left to use our own imagination? I don't really know what's happening, but that's one thing. Now, the next thing, here we go talking about, oh, Trump's a misogynist and a woman hater. Is he really? Or is that you, Doug Emhoff? Let's watch this clip. And of course, all the clips, all the pictures, all my sources will be available in the box. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Two guys who actually not only don't trust women, but are literally running on a platform of authoritarianism and misogyny. That literally should be their slogan, because that's what it is. So you want, people who literally are outwardly misogynistic in their policies and the way they talk about women and the policies in which they have already enacted and have talked about enacting, or Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. It's completely binary.
All right, so there we go. Hey, man, you got these guys talking about women and they hate women, all this, that, and the third. Well, look, I don't know about what you want to say as far as your record, but I know that Trump can get on stage and say he's never been accused of slapping the woman so hard that she did a whole 360. She spunked around like Beetlejuice. Now, here we have Jen Psaki going along this whole, oh, you're the model husband and you're the new definition of masculinity. Here we have that. Check this out.
Important part, an interesting part of how people have talked about your role here is how your role has reshaped the perception of masculinity. And I'm not sure you planned on that, but you are an incredibly supportive spouse. Has that been an evolution for you? And do you think that's part of the role you might play as first gentleman?
They're calling him soft and a real good guy, but really this guy is akin to Ike Turner, beating on women, all this, that, and the third. So what's really going on? Fake nice guy. But anyway, let's continue.
It's funny. I've started to think a lot about this. I've always been like this. My dad was like this.
Like what? A wife beater? A philanderer? Cheating on your wife with the nanny and having the baby and making her delete the baby? Is that how your dad was and your pawpaw was too?
And to me, it's the
important part.
Now, that's that. Now, let's look at this here. See the headline, Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, forcefully slapped ex-girlfriend for flirting with another man in Boozville assault after date to star-studded gala. Okay, so she's at the event. He sees her kind of flirting or whatever. Boom. Slaps her right in the head and makes her do a whole 360. Turns her around. Exorcist style, Beetlejuice style. That's what happened. Okay, now here's an article from The Hill. Another source. I just showed you an article that might have been New York Times or New York Post. Here we are with The Hill. Doug Emhoff accused of slapping ex-girlfriend in 2012. wife guy image under scrutiny. Here's another article from Breitbart. Doug Emhoff paid $80,000 hush money and was never prosecuted. There we go with the fist up. He loves limbering that arm up, limbering that fist up to punch the next girl that gets out of line. Isn't that what's going on, Doug Emhoff? Now check it out. Second gentleman, Doug Emhoff, reportedly paid $80,000 in U.S. American cold hard cash dollars in hush money to his former nanny as part of a non-disclosure agreement, NDA, but was not prosecuted, unlike Trump. Now, my thing is, okay, if we're going to prosecute Trump for the whole Stormy Daniels kerfuffle, then why not him? Now, somebody going to say, well, hey, ABL, he's not running. And the reason why Trump got prosecuted is because he was running and he was trying to interfere with the election. Interfering with the election, how is that interfering? You're saying, hey, here's some money. Don't say anything crazy about me. Why is that a bad thing to do? You know this person, y'all had a consensual relationship. There was no sexual assault allegation or anything like that. So I don't really see the crime. Hey, just be quiet. Don't get in the way. That shouldn't be a crime. And if it is a crime, then why not here? Again, some are going to say that he wasn't running for president, but there's his wife right there, and she is. So if Doug Emhoff is doing something that's improper, like, I don't know, beating women up and paying them hush money, if that's a crime now, then that should be looked into, because if it is revealed that he did that, that can most certainly hurt her and her chances going forward. And to say that it doesn't have any impact is completely ridiculous. If it had no impact, then why is he out there doing campaign stops? If he's ineffective at helping her succeed, then why do any kind of events at all? You think you're going to go out there and present this good guy image, the wife guy image at campaign stops and have that help Kamala win. This is why they put girlfriends and whatnot with some of these guys who are unmarried with no kids, like Tim Scott and Cory Booker. But different story, I digress. Now, let's keep on going here. Former President Donald Trump was prosecuted in New York and convicted on 34 counts for failing to list NDA payments to adult actress, I ain't gonna say what they said here, Stormy Daniels, aka Stephanie Clifford, as campaign expenses. He denies the affair. Democrats, including Emhoff's wife, Vice President Kamala Harris, have referred to Trump as a convicted felon, referring to the New York case. Yet Emhoff too allegedly paid hush money. So if you're gonna be Kamala Harris and attack Trump for the hush money payments and ignore what your husband did, which is the exact same thing, you're a hypocrite, and it must not bother you that much when your own husband does it. You see how this works? So this is what's going on. Check it out. The UK Daily Mail revealed in August that Emhoff's first marriage broke up because of his affair with the family nanny, whom he allegedly impregnated and made the nanny delete the baby. The affair was hidden during Harris's Senate and presidential campaigns. Emhoff acknowledged the affair to CNN once the story broke, but did not mention impregnating the nanny or the fate of the child. Democrats in the media nonetheless praised Emhoff for reshaping the perception of masculinity. And then here's the other thing. On Wednesday, the Daily Mail reported that Emhoff had forcibly slapped a girlfriend in 2012, which prompted her to leave him. It added that Emhoff allegedly paid the nanny a settlement of around $80,000 and that the nanny signed an NDA. It was not clear when the amount was paid or over what time. The nanny lives in New York where Trump was prosecuted. So you have in a New York situation where you're paying somebody off, you're paying them hush money in New York. Trump did the same thing, allegedly. Trump gets prosecuted, 34 counts, all this stuff, but nothing happens to Doug Emhoff. And as a matter of fact, it's pretty much swept under the rug. Okay, it's swept under the rug. All right. So that's that. And I will link to everything, all the sources in the box. But as I close, I want to say this. Shout out to the guys who don't beat up women, who don't get their wife's nanny pregnant, tell her to delete the baby, allegedly, and then pay her hush money, allegedly. Shout out to you guys who don't do that. You know, I know one guy who has not been accused of doing anything like that, and that's President Trump. All they got is a whole Stormy Daniels thing, but there's no allegation of him slapping her upside the head. There's no allegation of him getting her pregnant and making her delete the baby. That's not there, but it is with Doug Emhoff. So what's really going on?
Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
This all comes as the Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
The president and I have been paying close attention from the beginning to what we need to do to make sure the federal resources hit the ground as quickly as possible. And that includes what was necessary to make sure that we provided direct federal assistance. And that work has been happening. I want to thank the governor for his leadership and his close coordination with the federal government, with our administration. And I want to thank the local leaders for together creating a task force-like response, knowing that we are at our best when we work together.
Ukraine can get unlimited black card from the U.S. Israel, unlimited. Taiwan, here, sprinkle them with a few billion. Americans wiped out, lost everything, $750. This is going to kill a goddamn, this going to kill the Democratic ticket. This is disgusting. And Trump had to go down there and just start a GoFundMe that's growing. We're going to look at that video. This is disgusting.
And coordinate resources, coordinate our communications to the maximum effect for the community that has been impacted. And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food.
Outrageous. Outrageous. The people that lost their job, don't know where the next meal coming from. Here's $750. Home smash. Here goes $750. What? Tree in their living room. Puh.
Food, baby formula, and the like. And you can apply now for anyone who's watching this who has been affected. There are FEMA personnel who are.
Go get some baby formula. The damn grocery store is smashed up. What are you talking about, ma'am?
Going door to door to interact personally with folks, especially those who do not have electricity, but also that aid, if you have electricity, can be applied.
We got to go door to door for those who don't have electricity. Well, why the hell did you tell us to go to get some baby formula? See, this is bullshit. You just told us we're going to go get some baby formula. Then in the same sentence, you say there's no electricity. Well, how the hell we going to go get the baby formula out the store, ma'am? See, you're just full of shit, Kamal. You don't give a damn about us.
Applied for online.
Disrespectful is the only word that I can use to describe what the people are going through in these hurricane affected areas with Helene, while our president seems to be MIA. Yo, we gonna get down there. Don't worry about it. Look
at this. Well, you can go by Moe's and buy you a burger. Ma'am, Moe's is blown up. You see how disrespectful that was to my $750 for these people? They would have never said this for Israel. If Israel looked like this, they millionaires. Everybody gets some, America would say everybody gets $1 million a piece if this was Israel. You don't worry about nothing. We're rebuilding everything. And we got 18 wheelers full of food for every household if this was Ukraine. But in America, look like the end of the world, and they get $750. Man, that's fucked up.
We'll make our way down there 6-7 days later after hurricanes have already absolutely devastated communities, as you can see right here. I mean, lives upended, jobs are lost, homes is just absolutely swept away. Roads, you can't even get down to rescue in the way that you're supposed to because we're woefully unprepared. And they're talking about going through the process and we have to wait to make sure. No. Listen. Zelensky just came over here and got another $8 to $9 billion to make sure that they taken care of when it comes to the over there with Ukraine and Russia.
Come on, man. Pay all the bills for every soldier, everybody lights, pay everybody medical expenses, all the pensions is paid. All the pensions is paid up in Ukraine though. But in America, but these same people in this town, out of their hard-working checks, these people that work, the government didn't give them back their tax money. It went straight to Zelensky. And then the government, they say, the government, I need help. I lost everything. We'll give you $750. Man, boy, they all right. They don't know what they're doing. world.
Israel is going back and forth with Iran, and they going back and forth launching missiles, and we giving them weapons and aid and assistance and love and all of this, and you telling me we woefully unprepared to help people? Because somebody made a comment on the Millionaire Morning Show today, and I absolutely agreed with. The president can't control what happens with the weather. I don't know, maybe they can. Who knows? You'd be surprised what we find out sooner rather than later. But what the president can control is how you respond to it. My father always told me life is 10% what happens to you, 90% of how you respond to it. And if you're telling me that we're woefully so unprepared to where when people are going through a disaster, that we don't have the ability to get to them or even address the issue and show that you're there for them, 6 to 7 days as the president of the United States of America, but we can hand over an additional $8 billion at the drop of the hat. And then she jumps on and says, well, we're going to start with $750. Nah. Not after we gave hundreds of billions of dollars over to these proxy wars and counting. Not after we gave tens of billions, if not hundreds of billions of dollars into funding this migrant crisis. Not after New York was over there giving away food cards and EBT and basically food stamps and cash, and we was making sure that they were staffed. Not after Brandon Johnson signed a $100 million additional deal for staffing like we funded an NBA player. No, absolutely we not. Not after we've left our infrastructure to just completely crumble, even though we did the infrastructure deal and we had all of that bloatware inside of there. Absolutely not. And so don't talk to me about processes. I've seen Mark Cuban, right? And I like Mark Cuban. I think that he's a great NBA owner. But at the same time, I think that Mark Cuban on a lot of things is wrong. And I don't agree 100% with anything that anybody says. I seen Mark Cuban on one of these shows, MSNBC or something like that, because he's caping hard for Kamala Harris. And he said, she's great. She's awesome. She's run this like the CEO of a company. Respectfully, which type of CEO, number one. And number two, we don't need CEOs per se in this moment. We need people that exemplify quality leadership, and we want them to show their humanity and then also place Americans first. This is not about politics right now. It really isn't. Even though politics is involved in every single thing that we do, this is not about politics right now. This is about showing that you are truly a leader. And I'm not even just talking about the hurricane. I'm talking about everything. Like, for example, I seen Ron DeSantis, and he was like, listen, I don't know what we got to do, but we got to get these ports open because we're woefully underprepared to continue to help people when we don't even have the ability to get things through our ports. Goods, services, all of the things that Trump has been saying that we needed to prepare for as far as making sure that we manufacture and have things going on in the United States of America is literally coming to fruition within 30 days, around roughly 30 days to the election. And it should give you a wake-up call that we don't care whether or not you voting for somebody because they black or because they a woman or anything like that. I care about people that care about the United States of America first. We don't care about vibes. Vibes can't help these people rebuild their lives, and they don't have the ability to even get rescued. It's hundreds, if not thousands of people. They're saying it's estimated over 1,000 people on the ground, not what's being reported by the news, but on the ground, there are thousands of people that are dead and missing. And we don't need somebody to start talking about policy and we don't need all of that. We don't need all, and I'm speaking about Mark Cuban, right? We don't need these fake talking points. We don't need the $25,000. We don't care nothing about that. Couldn't even stop off the campaign trail in order to make sure that she was on the ground. Trump appeared before they did, and they the president of the United States, and he brought supplies and goods and services and all of that stuff, right? He talking about, listen, we got to call Elon Musk. We got to get Starlink out here because, you know, we don't have no phones, no connections, and we got to leverage our ability as the United States of America and take our infrastructure that we're continuing to build privately and leverage that to help the people over here in Asheville, North Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, Texas, wherever it is that this hurricane has done any level of devastation. We should be putting America first. We should be so quick on standing up our infrastructure, having things ready to go, with all of the resources and the monies that we distribute across the United States of America to social services, all of the monies that we distribute to migrants, all of the monies that we distribute into these other countries, into these proxy wars and stuff like that. Then you telling me we can't even help our people as quickly as we possibly can, and it take you 5, 6, 7 days to even talk about it nationally, bring attention to it, and it's regular everyday citizens. Regular everyday citizens, that's the ones that's actually doing all of the work. And they're unheralded. They won't get any visibility. Ain't no talking points to it. And ain't no photo ops that come along with it. Regular everyday citizens are the ones that's actually doing the work and is on the ground taking care of business. Listen, I love you. I appreciate you. Y'all need to start paying attention and voting on the things that actually make sense. Prayers up for the people down there.
And Honolulu, go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. Trump just called Biden out for failing to lead. Reporter, have you reached out to Biden? No, I haven't reached out to him. I think he's sleeping right now. So this is all. Trump has started a GoFundMe for the people affected by the hurricane. Let's listen to Trump.
Have you reached out to President Biden about federal relief efforts?
No, I haven't reached out to him. No, I think he's sleeping right now, actually. Being responsive, the federal government is not being responsive. But they're having a very hard time getting the president on the phone. He won't get on, and of course the vice president, she's out someplace campaigning, looking for money. So they have to be focused over here. It's too big. This is a really bad one. And the governor's doing a good job, but he's having a hard time getting the president on the phone. They're being very non-responsive. We're also going to be we're talking with North Carolina. We're trying to get them hooked up with communication. They're totally closed right now. North Carolina has really been hit hard. Really, really been hit hard. The hardest. And we can't even get in there right now. And there are a lot of people that have been injured or worse. Very bad, North Carolina. We're working with the people in North Carolina now to get them hooked up for communication.
So guess what Trump's doing? Donald Trump's GoFundMe for Hurricane. Is it Helene? Hurricane Helene victims raises over $1 million, like in the first hour. That's not really. So let's read a little bit.
Tell the victims not to take the money because he's a bad man.
Yeah. Donald Trump's fundraiser for Hurricane Helene victims has received more than $1.5 million in donations in less than 24 hours. At least 133 people lost their lives when this season's most powerful hurricane ripped through 6 southeastern states. Yes. Hang on. Malcolm's telling me something. Oh, it's up to $4,186,000 raised. Yes. Trump's campaign finance director, Meredith O'Rourke, set up a GoFundMe for MAGA supporters to offer their financial assistance to their fellow Americans impacted by Hurricane Helene around 1 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. As of 7 a.m. on Tuesday, the fundraiser had reached $1.6 million, with the largest donation coming from former Georgia Senator Kelly Loeffler, who gave $500,000. Well, now it's up to 4.6? Is that what I said?
3 million.
It's up to 4.1 million. And here it says, look, up to 3 million. Look at that. When Newsweek contacted Trump's team for further comment, spokesperson Stephen Chang said, "Where's Kamala?" Newsweek has contacted the campaign of Democratic presidential nominee Kamal Harris for a response. Newsweek, did you get a response? Vice President Harris, who has not yet visited the affected areas.
She's busy.
She spoke at FEMA's headquarters on Monday, saying, "Our nation is with you. We will continue to do everything we can to help you recover and help you rebuild, no matter how long it takes." Okay, that's what she says.
She sounds like a hurricane czar.
Yeah. Trump criticized the response of President Biden's administration to the disaster during a visit to Valdosta, Georgia on Monday, when he said that State Governor Brian Kemp was having a hard time calling Biden on the phone to discuss federal emergency relief. Is that true? But earlier that same day, Kemp had told reporters that when he spoke with Biden on Sunday evening, the president told him, if there's other things Georgia needs, just call him directly, which Kemp appreciates. So I'd say I'm getting two different stories there. Trump also said he has received reports that the federal government and the Democratic governor of the state were going out of their way to not help people in Republican areas. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre pushed back on this at a press briefing on Monday when she said FEMA had rescued and supported around 1,400 people across affected areas. Here's a little bit.
Out of how many people, though? That doesn't really... Okay.
Right? So here he is visiting Valdosta, Georgia.
Oh, that's very good. Thank you, fellas.
How are you? God bless you. We are praying for you.
Everybody got their shirts at Hooters, it looks like.
Absolutely. We love you.
Okay, so that's that. I thought that was funny. I thought it's kind of funny he started a GoFundMe, but now it's real money, $4 million. I would love to see what they do with that $4 million.
Wow, dude! Remember when Lahaina, they gave everybody $600 and then like they didn't get it?
Yeah,
they couldn't even get the $600.
They haven't built one house back on Lahaina.
Well, that's going to be one of those new cities that of
one of those 15-minute cities.
Yeah.
Lahaina used to be was the crown jewel of West Maui. That was the place where everybody we were told to go. It was this quaint little village and all these shops and restaurants, and it's right on the water. And of course, it's too. Of course, they got rid of that place. Of course, they did.
Where else are billionaires going to live, Jimmy?
Where else are the billionaires going to put up their? Of course.
When you hear about how bad China is for destroying the cultural heritage of China during the communist revolution because they want to get rid of the old, and that's exactly what America does right here. That's my favorite. It's the exact same shit. Wipe out the old culture and put in some awful gaudy crap. How is China different than us?
Hey, come see us do stand-up comedy in Tempe, Arizona, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton.
Federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs.
A few moments later.
Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
Hurricane Helene just ended Kamala Harris's campaign. This comes after a bombshell announcement from the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. So what we're going to do in this video is react to the corruption and exposing what's really happening. Let's start at the very beginning.
Tonight, an unfolding catastrophe in Asheville, North Carolina. Homes and buildings swept away by raging floodwaters that have submerged the town.
It's beyond anything I've ever seen in my lifetime.
Parts of the town not underwater, completely cut off.
Somebody on a Facebook post said something about having to fly out of Asheville because you can't drive out of Asheville.
That extreme.
Yeah.
With no power and no cell service, crowds formed outside this hotel, one of the only places in town with working Wi-Fi.
6,300 National Guard troops racing to get aid to those in need, along with an army of volunteers. The death toll skyrocketing. At least 166 people killed across 6 states and hundreds of people still missing. And back here in North Carolina, dramatic dashboard camera footage capturing this moment that a couple narrowly missed being swept up in a landslide in the Blue Ridge Mountain.
Let me just give you guys a couple of stats here I have on my screen, so I don't want to get this wrong. Currently, today, the death toll is at 205. They're estimating that the economic damage, right, to the economy in that local area is north of $160 billion. The size of the hurricane covered over 800 miles. And the storm caused record-breaking flooding, which we've seen in the videos and the clips. And the power outages reached at least 690,000 homes. Given the catastrophe and the size of how damaging this has been to that area, this is the purpose of the video, why I truly believe this is going to negatively impact Kamala Harris's campaign because of the responses and the corruption. And where we're going to start with the response is the current commander-in-chief.
Loved ones waiting, not sure if their loved ones are okay, and they can't contact them because there's no communications. There's homes and businesses have washed away in an instant. I want them to know we're not leaving until the job is done. Many more folks displaced with no idea when they'll be able to be returned to the home, if ever, there's a home to return to. So we're keeping them all in our prayers, and all the lives lost, and those particularly unaccounted for. There's nothing like wondering, is my husband, wife, son, daughter, mother, father alive? And many more who remain without electricity, water, food, and communications. There's homes and businesses have washed away in an instant. I want them to know we're not leaving until the job is done. I also want you to know I'm committed to traveling to the impacted areas as soon as possible, but I've been told that it would be disruptive if I did it right now. We will not do that at the risk of diverting or delaying any of the response assets needed to deal with this crisis. My first responsibility is to get all the help needed to those impacted areas. And I expect to be there. Excuse me, I have a cold. I expect to be there later this week.
This is the commander-in-chief. He's barely alive. The guy's coughing all over the place. I mean, he started off the press conference, like he was out of breath. And so that, I mean, does that really matter right now? No, but it's just a side note. I mean, geez, this is what we've come to as a country, where we have someone like him still in charge. But hey, it doesn't really matter, because if you thought what he was doing,
lied talking about, oh, excuse me, I got a cold. Oh, you got a cold? Why the hell are you out here getting people sick? This is just ridiculous. That's just how you talk. That's just who you, a sickly, elderly old man. Yeah, oh, I got a cold. No, you don't, or you wouldn't be up there.
Was ridiculous. Look at Kamala Harris. She is just as fake as you can get. I don't understand the photo out there. Why are you like, what is that? You waiting for the cameras to roll to look like you're doing your job. You got your nice little crisis jacket on with the big logo.
Yeah,
okay, sure. I'm sure that people believe you. And just look at Kamala Harris.
That's disgusting. Look. Oh, she can suck. She's sharing a moment with the black community. Oh my goodness, that is just disgusting, bro. Then they got these black people here just to be props for Kamala. I'm with you. I'm here to check on black people. That's disgusting, man. They looking at me. All right. Y'all go. Hey, y'all go give me some water or something. All right. Go. All right, you got warrants. Hey. Let me see. The police walk over there. Let me see your ID. Who are y'all? Who are y'all? Y'all got any tickets? Disgusting.
She is just as fake as you can get. I don't understand the photo out there. Why are you like, what is that? You waiting for the cameras to roll to look like you're doing your job. You got your nice little crisis jacket on with the big logo. Okay, sure. I'm sure that people believe you. And just optics wise, it looks weird. But hey, let's give her the benefit of the doubt. Let's see what she had to say.
I want to acknowledge and thank the first responders who have been extraordinary. Having met with them, they are the kind of folks that are the heroes in moments of crisis, who do extraordinary work that is about lifting up other people. as it relates in particular to the leaders who are here and doing that work, including the first responders, most of them, as it relates to the local folks, are folks who have personally and their families have personally experienced loss and devastation, and yet they leave their home, leave their family to go to centers like where I was earlier to do the work of helping perfect strangers.
Can she just stick to the script? I don't know why she's speaking off script like this. Not during this time. I understand she's trying to be inspirational. I don't believe she is that type of person when it comes to her public speaking skills.
The president and I have been paying close attention from the beginning to what we need to do to make sure the federal resources hit the ground as quickly as possible. And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met, such as food, baby formula, and the like.
We know that $750 is really nothing if you're comparing it to how much money they just sent to Ukraine. We're going to get to that later in this video, but this was what she had to say. Now, let's see what former President Trump had to say, who was first on the ground, and he showed up in Georgia, and here's what he had to say.
Homes, hospitals, highways, and cars have been plunged underwater. Entire neighborhoods have been turned into lakes. Nobody's seen anything like it. And to every family that's been displaced here in Georgia and North Carolina, which has really been hit. We were going there also, and they don't have communication. They don't have anything right now. We're trying to. I just spoke to Elon. I'm getting him. We want to get Starlink hooked up because they have no communication whatsoever. And Elon will always come through. We know that.
So already Trump is saying exactly what is he going to do to help in this situation, collaborating with Elon Musk, who really doesn't have to do it, which you guys are going to find out later in this video why he really didn't have to do this, but he did. And it once again exposes the corruption from Kamala Harris, of course, and the leadership of this current administration. The individual who really, I would say, is probably going to be responsible for why Kamala Harris will lose this election is the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas.
Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas sounding the alarm on FEMA funding right after the devastation of Hurricane Helene. Listen.
We are meeting the immediate needs with the money that we have. We are expecting another hurricane hitting. We do not have the funds. FEMA does not have the funds to make it through the season.
This all comes as the Biden-Harris administration spent over $1 billion from a FEMA program on services for migrants.
Talk about terrible timing. We're 30 days out from the election. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, this probably will be the end for her. And that would be a good thing because our country needs strong leadership. This is what weak leadership gets you. They spend more money and they have more compassion for illegal immigrants than they do for our own American citizens, and especially ones right now who are in such a terrible situation. Now, of course, this is my opinion. Let's watch a couple of clips that brings this point home of how bad it is.
I want to ask you about what you've seen from FEMA on the ground. And I know that Americans are helping out right now, but is FEMA leading the effort? Are you seeing them on the ground delivering aid, or is this on the backs of the American citizenry?
No, actually, the American people are the ones who are leading the efforts. And so you can see now that there is a tremendous amount of people that's just stepped up. I've heard from others who said that they haven't heard or seen FEMA. And so that's become a bit of a problem. And some of the other areas, which has only got helicopter accessibility, rotary wing only, it makes it even more difficult. And again, I want to apologize for the background noise and everything. We just landed to refuel. We're going to try and go back up and go out. But yeah, I haven't seen FEMA the entire time. And I've talked to many of the fire departments, and they've had very little communication with them as well.
Well, maybe FEMA should be less concerned about DEI, which is the #1 priority of FEMA, and more concerned about delivering aid during crises like what's going on in Western North Carolina.
Well, they are concerned with delivering for a crisis, but it's the wrong one. They're delivering for the immigration crisis, the border crisis, right? In these sanctuary cities, that's where the money has been going. Clearly, that's where the resources are at. I mean, how damaging is it for a congressman to go on to a major network and say that even local police department, fire department, the citizens have not made contact with FEMA? That is terrible. Why is it that FEMA is the last on the scene? That's what I don't understand. I mean, that's why I call this a scandal, ladies and gentlemen, because in 2024, speed is everything. And if you're telling me former President Trump and what he brought, resources, Elon Musk and the Starlinks, Corey Mills and the people he's been using privately to help people be rescued and things like that, they've been on the ground. They were there before FEMA. Oh yeah, we got problems. Now, if you're getting value from this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to our channel. If you want to support us further, go to the link in the description below, grab yourself a t-shirt or buy us a cup of coffee. So this is a glimpse into the chaos that is happening right now on the ground, and we're just getting started, okay? Thank God that the fact that Elon Musk donated a lot of his Starlinks, even when the government pretty much stiffed him on a government contract where he would have provided over 19,000 Starlinks to FEMA. Yes, you heard that correctly. But it took Donald Trump to reach out to him to get that going. And let's look at a couple of tweets from Elon Musk on this exact issue. So here's the actual tweet where it's just really the bottom line to it. He writes, had the FCC not illegally revoked the SpaceX Starlink award, it would probably have saved lives in North Carolina. Lawfare costs lives. Now, why is that? Because earlier there was this tweet that was released. North Carolina would have 19,522 working Starlink kits available today after Hurricane Helene had the FCC not revoked in bad faith the grant that was awarded to SpaceX as the winning bidder. So SpaceX bid on this government program. They won it, and then all of a sudden it was revoked. So here's like the list of all the states where Starlink would be available to be used from the federal government. So clearly that would trickle down to FEMA, and that didn't happen. Elon Musk, he sends the Starlinks there. He makes it free. People don't have to pay. I mean, he's pretty much doing more than FEMA at this point. I mean, and that's not to be disrespectful to people who work for FEMA. I just don't believe FEMA is set up to be successful when you're diverting funds to the migrant crisis that shouldn't exist in the first place. All right, so let's go over the implications of this and how I believe this is going to just end the election for her, just full stop. Number one, the federal government and FEMA, which obviously stops at Kamala Harris's feet because she's running to be the next commander-in-chief. They've been embarrassed with their failed response because of politics. And what do I mean by that? Well, politics is what prevented Starlinks from being available immediately. Politics have prevented from even private citizens and other people with resources from helping the local community and being obstructed by FEMA and local authorities. The second thing is that voters feel forgotten. They don't feel like that the federal government cares. And this is another Maui situation again. And so this is bad timing for the campaign. And this is why immigration can have negative impacts that you don't even see coming, right? Who thought that a hurricane would hit in this month, 30 days before the election, and then it's exposed that they've used almost $1 billion on the migrant crisis, but they're struggling delivering resources, and now they're going to be short of money in FEMA moving forward during the hurricane season. I mean, that is just crazy. And the one thing that isn't crazy that's actually great news is the GoFundMe that was set up when former President Trump visited Georgia. This was set up the same day. And people have been donating, and they're already up to $4.7 million. It's interesting how Donald Trump is literally raising money. He's already halfway to whatever FEMA has done. And so once again, great for him, bad for Kamala Harris. So there was a lot of information that we went through in this video, but I would just want to leave you guys with this. We got to bring common sense back. I mean, that's just the bottom line. When our fellow citizens are in trouble and a disaster strikes, it just isn't time to play politics. And what I mean by that is that when you go back a few years ago and you treat Elon Musk the way that you've treated him, who clearly knows what he's doing, who clearly knows how to get results, who clearly moves faster than the government, but you stiff him because you don't like him. I mean, that comes back to bite you in the you know what. So that's the biggest thing here. And when people don't feel like they are being taken care of by the government, this is going to ruin her campaign for sure, because this is part of the administration that she's a part of. And people are going to blame someone, and they're not going to blame former President Trump. You can't blame Trump for this one. They're going to blame Joe Biden, and they're going to blame Kamala Harris. So that's my opinion. What do you guys think?
Cajun Navy.
Yep, this is Red. Volunteer helicopter pilots are doing the Lord's work by rescuing hurricane victims out in the mountains of western North Carolina. Some of them, however, are being stopped by local authorities. Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about the ongoing rescue efforts after Hurricane Helene hit large parts of the Southeast. You're talking about Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, maybe even as far as West Virginia, Florida, of course. A lot of these places have been devastated by the hurricane. Specifically, Western North Carolina, a lot of damage has been happening. A lot of people are trapped up in these mountainous remote communities, and there's often no way to get to them by traditional means, by like a road, because the roads are washed out. So what's happening? You have volunteers from all over the country come to this region with helicopters to save people. Now, some of them are being allowed to carry out their mission, and they're being allowed to rescue people. However, some are not. Now, the question is why? Is it a no-fly zone situation? Is it a safety issue? What's the reason why these pilots are not able to go rescue people who desperately need it, especially when the government isn't doing much? Now, before I go any further, let's hear from Kamala. Let's hear her plan to help out these people who need it right now. Check it out.
And the federal relief and assistance that we have been providing has included FEMA providing $750 for folks who need immediate needs being met. And the federal
$750. This is Maui, Hawaii all over again. And remember, that was just last year, also under the Biden-Harris administration. So what's really going on? Do we care about our American citizens? Do we care about them in times of need when natural disasters hit? Now, some might try to say, oh, you're advocating for socialism. No, no, no. We pay taxes. The taxes should go to what? National security. Isn't a natural disaster a matter of national security? Isn't that what that is? Maybe I'm just not understanding, but that's what we get. 750 U.S. American cold hard cash dollars. Meanwhile, the migrants get whatever they want. I'm getting triggered already. Before I go any further into it, let's get to a news clip about the volunteers who were able to do their job. Then we're going to get into a story of someone who's not able to do his job. And of course, everything will be in the box. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
It's the sound of solace. Help is on the way.
We just kind of organized a private helicopter army to go in and survey the damage and extract people and take supplies in and just create landing zones for everybody to have supply routes in and out.
Matt McSwain is a pilot from Mount Holly and says he received a call from Operation Airdrop, an organization now working to shore up relief and rescue efforts for folks trapped in North Carolina's high country.
We've had 37 helicopters today, volunteers. We've had people from Texas to Maine, all the way across the East Coast, just show up and like, how do we help?
For folks who remember Katrina, there's like the Cajun Navy.
Right.
I feel very much like this is Cajun Navy.
Yep, this is Redneck Navy. Redneck Marine Corps. I'm a Marine, so Redneck Marines.
Hoorah. Shout out to Marines. Hoorah. And before he continues, I want to thank everybody who has come out to Appalachia, because I'm out here in Appalachia. Thank you guys for coming out here. Shout out to you guys for donating. Whatever you can do, thank you for doing what you do. We really appreciate y'all. We really do.
Wayne took us back to the war room where we were allowed to take photos, but not share any audio from inside. There's a station where they gather calls for help, often from social media posts, then triage the severity of the need and what supplies should go on the flight, and then attempt to find that person in distress. One of the biggest hurdles, McSwain says, is not having spots to land.
When we go to those GPS coordinates, we may not be able to land there. It might be a mile, 2 miles on one side or the other just because we can't get to that distress call.
Tuesday, he says they plan to help with another major concern, shuttling in communication devices for first responders.
There's actual whole communities that are completely cut off from the grid. We tried to establish communications with the local sheriff's department, the fire department. There is no communications.
Thanks. So yeah, that's what's going on. Now, shout out to everybody that's been able to go out there and help with the situation. Now, let's get to the story of a pilot who was not able to fulfill his mission, the very same one we just saw on the screen. Check this out.
Back to the mountains, where remarkable stories of survival are now being shared days after Helene wreaked havoc in North Carolina. But one Pageland man's efforts to help are now the source of controversy. He flew his own chopper on his own dime to help stranded victims. But that man says he abandoned his rescue missions after a fire official threatened to have him thrown in jail. Well, that man now wants answers and turned to Queen City News chief investigator Jody Barr to help figure out what went wrong here.
This is the original post that I was reading when I decided to go up and help. It's a long post, but she's saying that her kids and family and animals are.
So somebody looks like they put it on Facebook or something. Somebody's talking about, hey, please help. Basically, it says we are now in desperate need of the help, and I hope someone can. Does anyone have any leads or information to private aviation? Which, okay, helicopter. That's exactly what that is. Specifically helicopters. I need to get my family, dogs included, off this mountain. So you have a direct call for help. Civilian, American citizen, fellow patriot, I'm coming to help. But somebody's in the way. Let's keep on going.
Family and animals are trapped. No way out, no supplies, and the only way in or out is accessible by helicopter. Limited cell service and no water since Friday morning. I thought I have a helicopter and maybe I can help.
Jordan Sidham piled food and water into his helicopter Saturday and headed up toward Banner Elk, the only way through a mountain gap in Lake Lure.
This is the mountain valley that you would have to fly to get to Black Mountain, where we were escorting people out. This is a mountain range, and this is a mountain range. The only place to fly through with bad visibility, low cloud coverage, is Lake Lure.
The cries for help from people stranded without food, water, or electricity hit social media soon after the flooding last Friday.
So my parents are stuck there. Their address is Banner Elk. They are in the first condo. If you receive this, please give me a call back. Thank you.
Sidham's phone started lighting up on Saturday with people begging for help.
I mean, I could hear the desperation in her voice. This is multiple phone calls I've received like this, voicemails, text messages, and you could hear people desperate for help.
Sidham and his son rescued 4 people on Saturday and spent the night in a nearby pilot's lounge, then decided to fly again Sunday morning.
I spoke with my son, which is my co-pilot. I said, hey, do you want to go back out and try to help today? And his response was, there's so many messages out, I don't think we can't not go help.
Sidham and his son were headed up to Black Mountain. Flight tracking shows no flight restrictions in place Saturday or Sunday morning when Sidham flew through the Lake Lure Gap. But that was all about to change. They spotted an older couple waving for help, then landed in what's left of their driveway.
Hey, I want you to let me get in. You step out and go out, help her in, put her bag in the back, get her strapped in. I'm going to take her down and come back. I'll take him, I'll come back, and then I'll get you, okay?
So
you see the plan, right? So he's in the helicopter with his son, with his boy, the co-pilot, and he's like, okay, you got this elderly couple, husband and wife. You go out there and let's help get the wife in. I'll get her to safety. Then I'm going to come back and get the husband, then I'm gonna come back get you. Makes sense to me.
Originally left my son co-pilot on the side of the mountain. It was kind of unstable, so I didn't want to put more weight in the helicopter to lift back off. So I left my son with the other victim, and I was just going to take one person down at the time. And you could hear me in the video talking through with the victims and with my son what we're going to do.
3 minutes away, Sidham spotted a group of rescuers just down the river. He landed and found someone in charge.
Told him my background experience, law enforcement, firefighting, pilot. He immediately started helping with coordination. He gave me radio frequencies to coordinate with them on, set up a landing area for me to come back with the other victim. And in the middle of the whole conversation and them blocking the road off, I was greeted by the, at that time I didn't know, but Lake Lure fire chief or assistant chief maybe. And
now my thing is, okay, at this point, you're the small town fire chief. You need to get out the way. Okay. This person is clearly not doing anything dangerous. They're not causing harm. So there's no need for you to really get in the way and try to be, big tough guy and flex your muscle. This ain't the time for that. This is the time to let people come in and help rescue people that need to be rescued, because you can stop him from doing his job. But what about that old man on top of the mountain? You're just going to leave him there? Like, come on, what are we doing?
And he shut down the whole operation. So at that point, I felt like the conversation wasn't going any further. And again, he asked me to leave, and I said, hey, I have no problem getting out of your area. If that's what you want us to do, we'll leave, no issue. At that point, I asked him, what was the reason I had to leave them there? And he said, again, you're interfering with my operation. I just need you to get out of the area. I said, sir, I don't know where you were trained at, but I know how my training is, and I'm not going to leave personnel behind. I'm going back to get my co-pilot. He said, if you turn around and go back up the mountain, you're going to be arrested.
That's crazy. Now, there's a little bit more to the video, but I'm not going to play everything, but you get the general idea. So he did go get his boy. He got his son, but he had to leave the husband behind because he didn't want to get arrested. He was going to risk the arrest for his boy, but now he's kind of pushing it if he goes back up the mountain and do all that. What should have happened was he should have just been left to do the rescue mission, the rescue effort. Unless the fire chief is able to get another helicopter in the sky and get the old man, then I don't see why he was even getting in the way. Just let citizens handle this, especially if you don't have a way to get it done. All right, look. As I close, I want to say this. This ain't the time for people to be flexing their muscle. Just let the citizens handle it. This is what should happen during times like this. We, the people, come together and help other people, because we see what the federales are going to do. $750, the same thing they did with Hawaii. And you still got problems with Hawaii right now, over a year later after the fire. Let the civilians handle it, let the people handle it, and let the government get out of the way. Get out of the way, let us do it, because obviously y'all don't know what to do up on Capitol Hill with our taxpayer money, by the way. And I think I'll leave that right there.
Out. All right, let's talk about Hurricane Helene and the destruction that it is doing in the Middle East, in Middle America, actually, all the way to Tennessee. They're seeing just a terrible death toll and horrible mud and water in the Appalachian Mountains. I mean, this is unthinkable. This wasn't just like, a once in 100-year event that this would happen. And so, yeah, it happens, but every 100 years. No, this never happens to parts of the country that this has been happening in. Right now, there's 100 people dead. States are struggling. Biden has sent some troops, and there's some National Guards that have been deployed to help clean up the mess and save people, but people are dying. This is just insane. I'll tell you what's really insane about this event. I shouldn't laugh, but it's just, because this is really tragic what's happening. And I'm so glad that I live in California. I always have to worry about earthquakes, but looking at this, and I thought about over the last few years, a lot of us from California have thought about moving to like Florida. Now after this, I'm thinking, I'd rather deal with earthquakes. This is just insane. Water is life and it's also death. This will take you down. Water, it will ruin your entire property. You'll own nothing after it's been destroyed with water. You can't salvage this. This is just terrible. I'm hoping though that the recovery for these people, look at this, underwater, just terrible. And these stories of the people who have died. There was a family who died. They were on the roof waiting to be rescued, and then the roof collapsed and they drowned. Just horrific stuff going on. People are without power. It's just, I hope that the cleanup and the effort to help all of these people is better than what's happened in Hawaii, for example. But that's one of my points. One of the things I'm hearing, this is from the deranged crowd, right? This is the deranged crowd that looks at a disaster like this and says, well, that's what you get for not believing in climate change. Or, well, that's what you get for voting Republican. That's what you get for living in a Republican-run state. Let's see how they handle this, those Republicans. Just politicizing this. This is like COVID, when people would die and they would say, well, I guess you wish you would have gotten the vaccine. Now that'll show you. Not taking into account the humanity of the situation, but instead politicizing it to that level where that'll show you, that'll teach you. This was your God telling you what? I don't know. And yet those same people that say these types of things that I'm seeing all over social media, especially Facebook, these are the same people that are, what about Hawaii? Hawaii is a Democrat-run state, and yet what was the rebuild like for Lahaina and Hawaii? It hasn't really happened, run by Democrats, but it's really not a political issue. But it is political. It is somewhat political now, because what we can now learn from this is not, oh, you should take climate change seriously to prevent this would have happened. This would have happened. This is not a climate change issue. But you know what is an issue is when politicians and states try to enact legislation that would ultimately put your life in danger if an event like this were to happen. A woman on Twitter said, her name's Julie E., and she says, not to be political right now, but we are completely dependent on our gas stoves these last few days without power. And I can't help thinking about how Kamala has been trying to ban them and how hosed we would be without it, right? And it's true. Kamala Harris wants to ban your gas stove. Here in the state of California, we have banned gas stoves, and we've also banned gas cars. Governor Gavin Newsom has announced that California will phase out gasoline-powered cars and drastically reduce demands for fossil fuels in California's fight against climate change. Executive order directs state to require that by 2035, all new cars and passenger trucks sold in California be zero-emission vehicles. Okay, maybe California wants to do, this is a bad idea, right? This is a bad idea. They signed this legislation. They said you can't have electric cars. And then a week later, the electric grid in California failed. We had blackouts. We couldn't they then turned, Governor Newsom, after signing this a week later, literally comes out and says to the people of California, charge your electric cars at night. We don't have enough electricity to handle it during the day. So you're going to convert the entire state to electric vehicles, but you can't actually handle the current electric vehicles that you have, let alone moving the entire state to electric vehicles. Bad idea. Then what does he do? They banned gas stoves. California moved towards banning gas appliances, including gas stoves, through a phased program that focuses on new construction. So if you currently have one, you're okay. But the California Air Resources Board voted to ban the sale of new gas furnaces and water heaters after 2030. So if I have a gas stove, I also have a gas water heater right now. All of my heat in my house runs on gas. If I want to replace those after 2030, I assume I'm going to have to buy an electric stove, and I'm going to have to buy an electric water heater, an electric dryer, all of my stuff that runs on gas. I'm going to have to buy electric in order to replace it. And then what would happen if an earthquake hit and there's no electricity, a natural disaster, a once in a 5,000 year, tsunami hits California and wipes us out like what we're seeing in the East Coast? I mean, people in Tennessee, they didn't think that they would have a hurricane that would hit all the way and flood and destroy their communities. They're not even a coastal state. So this isn't, oh, these dumb people building their houses on the coast, this is what they get. If you're gonna build your house on the coast, what do you expect? Do you expect that when you're living in Tennessee? You're not even living on the coast. There's no coast. So this just goes to show, I think, the importance of pushing back on some of these really ridiculous policies that these politicians want to push on us, all in the name of climate change, right? Right now it's in the name of climate change, but they could use any other excuse. Don't hyper focus on it just being about climate change, because once we stop buying that, they're going to sell us something else. So we have to just be vigilant and paying attention to how they try to control our lives and really ultimately ruin our lives. I mean, this would be devastating to your life if a natural disaster hits you and you have no electricity and your stove is on electric and you have no gas. No one has gas. You don't even have a neighbor with gas stove. Nobody has gas. You're all electric. All your vehicles are electric. All your appliances are electric. Everything's electric. You would starve to death. You would die. Because the government's certainly not going to get to you fast enough. They're sending troops to the Middle East. They don't have time for you in the middle of Appalachia. So I think this is a cautionary tale. When we look at what's gone on with Hurricane Helene, we should be really using this as a cautionary tale of what not to allow our politicians to do to us, to vote against this type of stuff. I have little hope, but I wish this message would get out to more people in California who are the ones at the forefront of voting for these types of measures of, yeah, let's just go all electric. I'm hoping that they're listening to these stories in the East Coast and saying, wait a minute, that might not be the best idea. So you're telling me that if we go all electric here in California, I'm going to have a special stockpile in my garage of gas-powered things like camping stoves, just all these gas something, in order to have as a backup in case of emergency, because my politicians are not thinking about me and not thinking about emergencies, which is really the thing they should be thinking about. That's really one of the functions of government, one of the main functions of government. And really, according to libertarians, the only function of government, right, is to defend the people from foreign enemies and natural disasters. That's when the government should step in and actually do something. The federal government would step in and say, well, we've got a major crisis. And so, we've got an invasion of some kind, or we've got a natural disaster of some kind, and we've got to go in and actually help the people, because they're our people. These are our citizens. That's what our job is as the government. But instead, they're doing all of these other things, controlling our lives, ensuring that we're totally and completely dependent and hobbled. And then disaster strikes on the East Coast. And do you think they learned this lesson? Do you think Gavin Newsom learned a single lesson after signing legislation banning the sale of gas cars after 2035, and then 1 week later saying, oh, by the way, don't power up the electric cars we have, which is less than 10% of cars are electric in California. We can't even support those cars, but all the cars by 2035 need to be electric. I mean, this is the level. They're just stupid. I mean, I at this point, we should just know that unfortunately, the best of the brightest do not run for office, and they instead They work for their donors. There's got to be big companies on the forefront of electric everything, and they're the ones that are wanting to push all of this onto us. Or it's their, rot brains where they're thinking gas. Russia has gas, lots of gas. Well, we don't want Russia's gas, so we better just go electric. We'll show Russia. As our people starve to death and freeze to death, we'll show Russia. That's what's going on in Europe right now, and they want to do that to us. So let's look at Hurricane Helene as a cautionary tale that we should not put all of our eggs in one basket when it comes to any one resource. I don't think it's wise to go all gas. I don't think it's wise to go all electric. I don't think it's wise to go all solar or all wind. I think we need everything. I think we need all of it. I think this is what we should learn from these types of events is We need to diversify our energy portfolio, not go in one direction because climate change. We need to diversify our energy portfolio so that in the event of the unthinkable for the people in Appalachia, in the event of the unthinkable, we have some level of protection. I hope people get the message, but unfortunately, I really doubt it.
Hi, John from Pittsburgh. How are you?
Well, Madam Vice President, from where? California, Washington, everywhere. Nice to see you.
I'm in Washington, D.C. today. Thank you.
Well,
Good to see you.
It's great to see you again. Thank you for doing this with me.
Look, she's so fake. Even saying hello to John from Pittsburgh was cringe. It's like her handlers propped her up in the chair and told her to read the ransom note. Like blink twice, Kamala. Kamala Harris cannot win this election without 3 crucial states in the Rust Belt: Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, which explains why she's been going to these 3 states, desperately trying to convince voters to choose her. She already disrespected the Muslims big time in Michigan, and they're vowing not to support her.
I want to make one thing very, very, very clear. We are going to do everything in our power to make sure Kamala Harris doesn't win.
You know what? If you want Donald Trump to win, then say that. Otherwise, I'm speaking.
Vote for, if you want Donald Trump to win, say that. I will vote for Satan if I have to.
But she's also fighting an uphill battle in Pennsylvania, where she's having a hard time getting men on board. All men, black men, white men, Hispanic men, all of them. That's why they're using a strategy to get the wives to flip and vote against their husbands and family to support her agenda. Yeah, that's the real reason why she's doing whatever she can to gain support in Pennsylvania, because just like Wisconsin and Michigan, she will not win the election without PA.
So basically, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, where are they? What are their weaknesses and strengths here in the last month or so?
Kamala Harris can't win the election without Pennsylvania. Okay. Donald Trump could, but it'd be a lot easier if he did. It's got 19 electoral votes. It's a big deal.
So in her latest interview, she zoomed in for a local Pittsburgh news station. It was another horrible interview where she refused to answer any questions, once again turning off voters in the middle, looking for real concrete answers and less memorized campaign speeches. Then when fracking came up, instead of facing the question head on, Kamala ran away from her own words and tried to write it off as false.
Well, Madam Vice President, I don't have to tell you how important natural gas is to this region. It's how we heat our homes and our factories in this region. It's very plentiful and cheaper than oil. And we extract natural gas through fracking. So I wanted to ask you, there's a political ad on TV from a 2019 Climate Hall town meeting that you had, in which you basically said, quote, "There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking," unquote. The ad claims that if you're elected president, you will ban fracking and you will cost Pennsylvania over 300,000 jobs. Have you changed your view on fracking? And if so, why?
So let me start by saying that ad, as you described it, is absolutely a mischaracterization that I think is intended to make people afraid of my presidency.
This lady just said reading a transcript of her own words was basically false. Mischaracterization is the word that she used, as in the act of describing a person, event, or situation incorrectly. How was saying what she said in her own words, that she was for banning fracking when she was running for president last time, somehow that's now a false statement.
Will you commit to implementing a federal ban on fracking your first day in office, adding the United States to the list of countries who have banned this devastating practice?
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So, yes, and starting
And starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah, so thank you.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes, and I've, again, worked on that.
Back then, she said she was against fracking and had been for years. She also said she would do everything within her power on day one to address the issue, as well as support any legislation that will follow up her executive actions. On top of all of that, Kamala the Cosmic Chameleon said that she would ban offshore drilling. These are her own words. Now in 2024, she flipped and said she was a supporter of fracking, but won't explain when, why, and how she changed her mind. Just like in the CNN interview with Dana Bash. She's only repeating that her views have not changed. Well, I'm telling you, this interview was horrible and basically pointless. Gave them 10 minutes to ask her questions, only to ignore every question. The reporter had to follow up each time to try to get an answer, even with fracking. The question was, have you changed your view on fracking? And if so, why? And instead of answering the question, she started deflecting and was up there talking about people lying on her.
Let me be absolutely clear, as I've been when I said it back in 2020. I will not ban fracking. I did not as vice president. In fact, I cast the tie-breaking vote to open up more fracking leases. And my perspective on this is grounded in a number of things, including that we don't have to ban fracking to do the work that we can do to also invest in a clean energy economy. So that's where I stand, period. As president of the United States, I will not ban fracking. I did not as vice president of the United States. And frankly, I think some of those ads are misleading intentionally to suggest to folks that they should be afraid, because on the other side, what you've got in my opponent is somebody who could and has not really done much about lifting up the middle class.
And even with the gas leases, she's lying about that too. But most Americans don't even know what she's talking about, especially her black supporters, the ones who only support her because she told them she was black. They won't even look at the research into that. So you can forget about them doing the research to understand gas leases. But I'll tell you this, the rest of the black people thinking clearly and not with emotions. The ones not drinking up the water from her bacon bathtub greens. We already know the truth about her. She's lying about the gas leases. From day one, they tried to stop leases, offering way lower contracts than both Obama and Trump. 2012, under Obama, you had 1,729 new leases. Under Trump in 2019, you had 1,841 new leases. That drastically changed under Biden. Only 407 leases in 2021 and 144 new leases in 2023. Then when you look at it in terms of acreage, I'm talking about the acreage issued for potential leasing. Under Obama in 2012, it was 1.7 million acres. Under Trump in 2019, it was 2.2 million acres. But under Biden in 2023, it wasn't even 100,000 acres. It was only 91,000 acres. We went from millions to less than 100,000. Not to mention what the Biden-Harris administration did on day one. They pulled the permit for the Keystone Pipeline, straight up sabotaged it. Then within the first week, they banned any new oil and gas drilling on public lands and water. See, Kamala is riding on no one knowing the truth and then sending out the black boule to yell and scream at us to fall in line. All of them talking about misinformation and disinformation every second when they're the ones spreading lies, which is why no one a part of the black boule should be trusted. And they're showing that every day. From Steve Harvey, Ricky Smiley, and D.L. Hughley to Angela Rye, Jamel Hill, and Tamika Mallory. I'm telling you, she was deflecting throughout the whole interview. It happened again when the reporter brought up the steel workers in Pennsylvania.
Have made it quite clear that under your presidencies, a foreign steel company like Japan's Nippon Steel will not be allowed to purchase U.S. steel. But U.S. Steel tells us that if you block the sale and stop the promised investment from Nippon, it may shut down the blast furnaces in our area and even move its headquarters from Pittsburgh. So how will you block Nippon but keep our steel jobs right here?
So let me tell you where I'm coming from. I feel very strongly that U.S. Steel needs to remain a U.S. company and that the people working there need to be American workers.
The question was, how will she block the sale but still keep the steel jobs right there in Pennsylvania when the company there said if it's blocked, they're going to pack up and leave Pennsylvania? Yeah, that was the original question. And you heard her initial answer. She went on and on about how she loved steel workers, but refused to answer the question. So the reporter had to ask her again.
But if you block this foreign acquisition, how can you guarantee that there will be support? Will it come from the federal government to make sure that these furnaces stay open and the jobs are kept here in Pittsburgh?
It is my priority to keep the jobs in Pittsburgh, understanding again that the folks who are doing that work are doing hard work, good work. It is part of not only a tradition of American industry to do that work, but it is part of what we need to invest in the future.
Just more baby bop bimbo babble about the importance of a great American industry and traditions, but no direct answers. Kamala, how will you keep the jobs in Pennsylvania if you're trying to put in place a ban that the company already said will force them out of Pennsylvania? And see, this is why the Kamala defense team, they want to stop people from asking her questions. This is exactly why. She doesn't have any answers, and she's only giving the same speeches over and over and over again, trying to cast a spell over people with their own emotions. Yeah, this is why Plies and people like him said we shouldn't be questioning this so-called black woman.
But to everybody who, especially the ones who look like me, and the men who look like me, who quick to, if Kamala want my vote, she need to explain herself to me what she gonna do for the black people. Listen, stop asking the black woman to explain herself to you.
Yeah, well, if this woman is applying to be the top leader in the world, she's going to have to answer questions just like everyone else had to do before. And leaning on being a double minority, an Indian, and a female, that's not going to save her. Let's go ahead and get the conversation started. Let me know what you think about this below.
About 662,000 non-citizens with criminal histories, but only has about 15,000 of them detained, so they say. That means that almost 98% of the criminals that the United States knows about are roaming the streets of America right now. This comes from an official ICE document, and we're going to go over it right now here on the show. All right, let's check this out. Check this. So this is from Tony Gonzalez from the U.S. House of Representatives. It's a response to a request from Representative Tony Gonzalez, who asked for these numbers back in March. First, some clarification. Are they illegal immigrants? ICE doesn't say so. So let's play this out a little bit as conservative as possible. Okay, so let's pretend that these numbers will just be as conservative as possible with these numbers. Most of them probably are, but they could also be people with green cards who are legal but not citizens, and that wouldn't really matter even if we did do this conservatively. Even if they are legal, breaking the law should get even a legal person deported, shouldn't they? You would think so, but that's not the way of it anymore. Breaking the law has no consequences in the United States of America for non-citizens. So if you're an illegal immigrant in the United States, you can break the law, you can murder people, you can rape. It doesn't really matter. If you're an illegal immigrant in the U.S., you can get away with all of that. According to this document. What matters is that ICE is tracking criminals and allowing them to stay in the United States. It knows that it's doing this. It's allowing them to stay right here in the United States. So when we lived in Europe, we had to provide clean background checks from the United States government and the Portuguese government to prove that we had no criminal records whatsoever. If we had criminal records, Portugal then could revoke residency to people living there, and it could have the right to deport individuals, right? That's what it could do. That law exists to keep the Portuguese people safe from criminals. It's a part of a social contract. Now, in the United States, you clearly don't have that social contract with our government. Our government knows about criminals and cannot remove them from our borders. Even ICE is frustrated about this right now. They exist to protect our borders and are not able to. They are not able to. Here is how they explain this.
All right, I'll take it from here. So what they're saying is that they recognize that some jurisdictions are concerned that cooperating with federal immigration officials will erode trust with immigrant communities and make it harder for local law enforcement to serve that populations. However, they say, and everyone who's been paying attention to this has said all along, sanctuary policies can end up shielding dangerous criminals who often victimize those same communities. The problem here is that their hands are tied. That's what they're saying. It's an utter gut punch to anyone that watches this, because there's no immigrant community saying, oh, yes, we want a free and open border so that criminals can come and terrorize, because where do they terrorize first? Us. So if they're specifically talking about Spanish-speaking communities, none of these Spanish-speaking communities want criminals to come in and hurt their daughters, kidnap their kids, steal from their hard-earned earnings. No one wants that. So how do liberals answer for this? Like, oh, we love all Latins. Just let them all come in, get documented. All are welcome. The Latin communities, this is why they're turning away from democratic policies, are saying you're letting through criminals. They're raping and stealing. But the Democrats' response is, yeah, but they're your people. You should be happier now, right? So it's a really racist way to torture migrant communities by open borders and placing more criminals inside those communities. So let's turn to the numbers. Now, what the White House says is that these numbers have been misrepresented. They're not saying that they're wrong. They're saying that they're being misrepresented. Well, I'm not exactly sure what they mean by misrepresented. Karine Jean-Pierre did not actually expand on this, but these are the numbers that ICE is saying. I think we can, at the very least, assume that it's, let's be conservative. I'm going to assume it's double this, but even if these numbers are legit, it's terrifying. So the way ICE is representing this to us, I found not sufficient. So I'm going to show you how I worked up these numbers in a second. So what they're saying, total criminals, and we're going to look at how they break down by crime, is about 15,000. So currently detained is about 10,000 with criminal convictions, and then pending convictions is about 4,700. So let's say that's about 15,000. Now, of the ones that they do not have detained, but either know that they're criminals, meaning we've convicted them or some other country has convicted them, or they're pending criminal charges, well, it's upwards of 600,000. So I wanted to take those numbers and put them in my own spreadsheet because, number one, I'm a Virgo and I love spreadsheets, any opportunity. But also, I want to know what the percentage is. What are these totals? What are the total numbers of crimes versus the total numbers of detainees? And it's really easy to see. So let's just look at the totals and then we'll look at it by crimes. So first of all, total people here that have done crimes, total number 662,000, but in custody 15,000. So that's 2% detained, 98% roaming free. Now, the document also says that they only have 40,000 beds in detention centers, so we can't take care of these people. We know that they're chartering flights for migrants, so we could say you're removed for now. We'll get you back if you prove your innocence. But for now, our priority is to protect the American people. So you got to go. They're not saying that. They're not doing any of that. They're just letting them go free. Now, if you read the tone of this document, clearly ICE is frustrated by this. Their whole reason for being is to keep the borders safe, and they're not allowed to do it. But these are the numbers. Now, if you look at this chart again, look at assault. Out of 108,000 people that they know have committed assault, they've detained 4%. This is one of the higher numbers, and it's even still totally crappy. That means 95% of assault perps walking free. Burglary, 18,000 offenders, 2.8% in custody, the rest walking free. Dangerous drugs, which is the root cause of the fentanyl crisis we have right now. We know of 72,000 offenders, but they have only 1,600 in custody, so 97% of them free to roam about the country. Let's move on to homicide, kidnapping, and robbery. You should, again, look at this yourself. I can send you this document with my workings because I want to say my spreadsheet representation is better than ICE. You can have it if you'd like, or you could make one yourself. But again, if we know of at least 15,000 murderers, how many have we detained? 329. That means if you murder someone as a non-citizen of America, you have a 98% chance of getting out and getting away with it. Kidnappers, we know of about 3,500, but have only detained 112. 97% rate of letting them go. These are people who steal children. Robbery, larceny, immigration offenders, every one of these, you see the percentage not detained, 95% or higher. Now let's move on to sexual offenders, weapons offenders, and traffic violations, which may seem like nothing, but I think traffic violations is a bigger threat to us than you think, because migrants who bring lawlessness to the country drive dangerously and can kill us all. So sex offenders and sexual assaulters, between 3 and 4% of them in custody, the rest out on the street with their penises to do whatever they want, right? People who steal property or vehicles. I'm not sure how this is different than burglary. Nevertheless, same amount of numbers. Traffic offenders, only 1.43% of them in custody. Weapons offenders, 17,000 migrants with illegal weapons, 96% not in custody. So can we trust these numbers? Well, J.J. Adams, the former Border and Customs agent, who's a friend of the show, says absolutely these numbers are comically no. J.J. Carroll. Who's J.J. Adams? I'm thinking that's nobody,
Abrams,
right?
I think is who you're thinking of, and that's
Is who I'm thinking of, who made Star Wars. I don't know how much he cares about that. Right. So we know that J.J. Carroll knows about this and says that these are comically low numbers. But even if we take them at face value, it shows 500,000 non-citizens that ICE lets go free inside our borders, so not making us safe. Now, Kamala Harris visited the border last week. She kind of looked through the wall and she announced that she would be announcing new restrictions. None of her new restrictions on the border would help the government deport criminals. That seems to be a non-issue. It's not like, okay, well, maybe we can stop them. But what about the ones that are already here? That are kidnappers and sexual assaulters and murderers. Can't do anything about that. That's the way it is. It's just the way it is. Okay, so why isn't this bigger news, though? Why does it seem like only conservatives care about this? Why would Democrats ignore this? Is it really just as stupid as that they would have to admit that Trump had a point about the borders and that would sort of break their operating system to ever validate anything that Trump said? It seems like that's the case. Discussing this recently, Greg Gutfeld said that it betrays all logic because surely Democrats love their families, and two, surely they don't want to be stolen from and raped too, right? I'm just going to let him say it.
In the real world, she would be toast. And I don't like getting riled up for no reason because the story is so unbelievable. I wanted to see if it was reported elsewhere. You know, it couldn't find it on MSNBC, CNN, Drudge. You have the release of hundreds of thousands of foreign criminals, like they emptied the jails, raped thousands of rapists, thousands of murderers. And on the pages of all of these networks, the death of Maggie Smith, which is sad, great actress, Lana Del Rey's marriage, P. Diddy rumors, but nothing about what is easily one of the most big, probably the biggest crime story I've ever seen. So we know that Democrats watch this show. Some of them hate watching. But if you're watching this, the media doesn't want you to know this information. They don't want it to reach you. They would rather you die or be raped than Trump be right or find out the truth. So you can hate Fox all you want. You can hate Trump all you want. You can hate me. But you can't hate yourself and your family so much that you're going to ignore a story that puts them in danger. Now, even if these numbers are off by 50%, please, I think that the fact checkers should fact check it. You know, tell us, no, it's not 16,000 rapists. It's only 8,000. It's only 7,000 murders. Cool. I'm glad you're okay with that. I'll take your fact check. But anybody who defends this or says it's not that big a deal is complicit, and they should be held accountable. Every victim of every crime by the people that are in here that we haven't vilified, who are actual villains, you need to file a class action suit against this government. You know, these bastards were more offended by stories of cats being eaten than real stories reported here of actual rape and murder. And if you ask why those other stories existed, it was the only way to get these a-holes in the media to even look at this story. They can only see immigration as a gotcha moment for political gain. There are actual people that are dying. This is a huge story. Where is it?
Well, it's here on Redacted. Does it help? I don't know. But, you know, I think that the ICE document shows why liberals don't care, and it makes me want to cry. It says because these murderers and rapists, they prey on the migrant communities that they move into. So it's not us, right? It's not sort of middle, affluent, upper class keyboard warrior type workers. So we can say we love all Latins and not really care that they're living in dangerous communities because our ignorance. And so it's, I don't know what it is.
And the sad thing is too, if you try to bring awareness to it and you try to talk about it in even a reasonable way, the climate is so chaotic that they just label you a racist and all this other stuff. It's like we can't even have conversations about it and try to figure out what do we do? Like, what can we do?
I don't know. We can talk about it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the people who are least likely to be victimized by it for now, until it spreads into all communities, who can say and ignore this because they can afford to for now.
Yeah. I mean, even Greg's comment, though, I mean, regardless of what you think about Fox News, I see a lot of people trashing Fox News, and that's fine. But his comment is pretty spot on, because even if they try to walk these numbers back and they're like, no, it's not 15,000, it's only 7,000 murders. Oh, okay. So
that's cool by you?
The hundreds of thousands. And I talked with JJ Carroll today about these numbers, and he said these numbers are bogus. I mean, it's way higher than this. Way higher. Where are they getting these numbers that they have these individuals detained in any kind of way? They don't have them detained. Where are they detaining them? All of these beds are empty. All of these ICE beds, detainment beds are empty. And he knows. He's gone to them. He's contacted all of his ICE friends and Border Patrol agents. They're not holding these individuals. They've released them.
Yeah.
And they don't know where they are in the United States.
Right.
And they're just out there. And so you got murderers that you know about, and the White House is now trying to walk these back. It's going to be very interesting to watch this vice presidential debate.
You know, there was a best-selling book recently called American Dirt. And the plot of the book is these a mom and a son who are victims of cartel violence, and then they illegally cross the U.S. border. They literally cross with a person who tries to rape them as they're going across with these two young girls who consistently are at risk of being raped because they're young and pretty. So I think this narrative of like, it's not just criminals, it's good people too, but the good people are being chased by rapists. And so the good, like, they're proving their own point that a secure border would secure everyone you want to care about. And it's such ignorance to say an open border is a compassionate thing to do. And you can only say that until it doesn't hurt you. And it's a tunnel vision that I literally can't stand it. But here are the numbers. Now, how the White House says they're being misconstrued, I don't know. I took exactly that document and put it in my prettier spreadsheet. You can check my math if you want to. We're not misconstruing anything. This is what ICE says they know about and they cannot detain, period.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Biden-Harris administration, I definitely want to emphasize Harris because she's just as much as a part of it as Biden. I want y'all to check out what they're trying to do in the last hours of the Biden-Harris administration. Now, we know we have this election coming up very, very soon. It's almost creeping up on 30 days, here in a few days, actually. And we want you to see what they're doing just in case Harris don't win the election. Let's check that out. This is coming from the LA Times. With the election looming, the U.S. is approving citizenship applications at the fastest speed in years. Now, why could they be doing that, ladies and gentlemen? Why could they be doing that? Now, they're going to actually say it real quick. You don't have to get far into this, okay? Because you know the Democrat Party, they don't want to just say, hey, let the voters come out and just vote and let's see how it goes. Oh, no. They got to do what they do. All right. Look at the main bullet point they got at the top. Many immigrants want to get citizenship in time to vote in the upcoming election. Just I want you to just let that marinate right there. Many immigrants want to get a citizenship in time to vote in the upcoming election. And we know, ladies and gentlemen, who they're going to vote for, because they're going to say, hey, Biden and Harris gave me my citizenship, so I'm going to go vote for Harris in this particular election. They don't care about the economy or none of that sort of thing. They're worrying about themselves, and we don't know. Maybe they could have got a promise to, hey, we'll get you citizenship, but you got to vote for Harris. You know what I'm saying? Listen, we can't put it past the Democrat Party, right? Now, they say they had hundreds of people from 63 countries that packed the Riverside Theater last week, and that's in California, to take the oath of citizenship. Talking about American flags flying the stage, as messengers conveying the immigrants' new power played on a large screen. Today, I'm an American. Today, I'm a citizen of the country I serve. Today, I can register to vote. You see that? And that's the part that I really want to highlight on with this. It's not so much of them getting the citizenship and that's and everything, but the Biden-Harris administration, we told y'all they was going to rush citizenships, rush amnesty, anything they can to make them legal, because hey, once they become a citizen, they can vote now. So you can't say they're voting illegally. Can't say that. So they're doing everything they can right now. Now, watch those battleground states that's coming up in this election. Watch those battleground states. It wouldn't shock me that they're trying to hurry up and approve citizenships in these battleground states and just kind of lean on, hey, you know, it was, you know, Harris, you know, she's part of the administration. She helped you get your citizenship. So, hey, now you can vote. You can register to vote. So it'd be good for you to vote for Harris because, hey, Harris, you got family members? Okay, well, she'll let you bring your family members over now. You can sponsor your family members. But if that mean Donald Trump get in there, you're not going to be able to do it. They're going to say everything they can to get these people to vote for her. Right? And it's just amazing to me how you look at the longshoreman strike that's going on, at least right now, today, the filming of this video. Biden can end the longshoreman strike right now, but he's saying, oh, I don't want to get in the middle of collective bargaining agreements, but yet he has the power as president to do something right now, right? Harris can go say something. She don't do nothing either, right? But when it's time for them to show up to do something, they don't do it. But they're rushing immigrants to become citizens. And this is what I told Black Americans. I told you that look at the theme of this election with the Democrats. They're not talking about you. They're not talking about none of our issues as Black Americans. They're not prioritizing you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Think about it. Go back to 2020. They talked about you a lot more. Go back to 2016. They talked about you a lot more. This election, 2024, the Democrats aren't talking about you. You're a byproduct. Yes, they need the Black vote, but you're not being prioritized on any agendas. You understand? And the reason why you're not being prioritized on any agenda, because they don't need you no more. I told you what the play was. I told you long while ago. The play is if Harris gets in office, she's going to give amnesty to all the people that came over here during the time when Biden and her was in the White House. She's going to give them amnesty on the guise of they come vote for her when she runs for re-election. And they're going to do it because they want to get the other family members over here too. You understand? And if she legalized another 10, 15 million people, she gives them citizenship where they can vote in elections. Then at that point, if you look at their numbers versus the Black American numbers, you now became Los Angeles, California. Why do I mention Los Angeles, California? Black people are not relevant in Los Angeles or the state of California, the black vote. It's not relevant. The Hispanics and Asians outnumber black people. And that was all done by design. And they want to bring the same political irrelevance to the rest of America for black people by flooding the zone with a bunch of people from 160 countries, 190 countries, whatever country they want to bring them from, right? They know that the migrants will assimilate into their system. The migrants is not going to fight for rights. The migrants is not going to say anything. They're just going to go with the flow, go along and get along. We are the only one in this country, ladies and gentlemen. We are the only one who have been fighting and standing up for rights and freedoms. Everybody tries to mirror what we have done already. This is why this election is extremely important, Black America. It is extremely important that you get involved because your literal survival in America is linked to this right now. Of course, they're going to try to talk about Project 2025. Man, Project 2025 ain't crap to all these people you trying to legalize. Because when you legalize all these people that come in here, they're against Black Americans because they're going for resources. And Black Americans are in their way. When Black Americans talk about reparations, all these people that come over here, they don't support reparations because they feel that they entitled to resources. These people coming here feel entitled to resources. So of course all these immigrants, for the most part, are against Black Americans getting reparations because they feel that's taking something from them that they could be getting. Understand? So we at a position where if you vote for Harris, then you voting for open borders and mass amnesty at this point. And just where you at with it. And ask Black people in California, do they really get anything done being politically irrelevant? Ask Black people in California how all these other groups are always attacking them. Ask them about that. Just ask them. Have a conversation. Even if you have a Black politician, they got to pander to other groups. They can't pander to Black people whatsoever. I told y'all this was the play. When I told y'all they was flying them in and doing different things. Oh, well, you know, how do you know? Then come out later, the CBP-1 app. They flying 30,000 of them in a month. They were flying 30,000 people a month into American cities. But yet we have a homeless population. You know what I'm saying? We have poor people, working class people that need help. But yet you're flying 30,000 people in, then you're sitting up here giving citizenship in a rapid pace just so they can vote, because that's the whole play. These people would do anything possible to not play the game fair. Let me say it that way. They will cheat, they will undermine, they will do all that just so they can stay in power. For real, for real. And as an American citizen, you better care because most Americans don't even have a passport. Most of you are not going to get up, pack your family up, and leave. You're just not going to do that. Well, because America keeps you in a position where you couldn't do it. America gives you just enough. We're talking about just working class people. They give you just enough just to pay your bills, to keep some food on the table, maybe a roof over your head, a car to drive, right? Maybe here and there you can have a little money for vacation, maybe a little money to party and BS, maybe. But they don't give you a bag a lot of times where you can say, you know what, I'm going to pack up my family and move to some other country. It don't have to be the African continent. Maybe go to the Caribbean, maybe go somewhere in Latin America. Now, some Black people have done it. But what I mean by that, the majority of you are not going to do it. They're just keep it 100. It's too many of y'all to do it. It is what it is. And some of you don't want to do it. So since you don't want to do that, and that's not an option for you, then you need to be concerned about where this country is going. Now, you don't have to take my word for it. You know, you can say, hey, he's just talking crap. Okay, that's fine. But I just don't want to hear the crying about 2 years into her administration about, man, I can't get a job no more. I got laid off and they hired migrants and they did this. The only thing I'm going to say is, hey, I tried to tell y'all before the election. I tried to tell you. I said, you listening to all Angela Rye, you listening to Tiffany Cross, you listening to Boulay Martin, you listening to all these Shields, you listening to all these people in your family. They listen. I know black folk. Black folk do not get it until they're in the middle of it. Then you want to fix it now. I know you. You always wait until you're in the middle of a problem before you realize that it was an issue. But the people that tried to tell you before it got to that point, you dismissed them. You dismissed them. You better think more about self-preservation and stop having emotional ties to a freaking party or a candidate or whatever. Think about policy. Think about what they're doing now. And it's a simple question. Are you better off today after these 4 years? Are you better off today than you were in the previous administration? That's all the question you got to ask. And that alone should let you know, what you probably, need to think about, right? But I've said this, I'm going to repeat this. I am not in support of the Democrat Party at this stage of the game because of the disrespect, because of all our our reparations money, it's been going to the migrants. That's where it's been going. You're talking about reparations, all that money they've been spending on migrants and the billions, that could have been reparations right there. And the Democrats are telling you no. Because at first y'all say, well, Republicans ain't going to give you nothing, and the Democrats ain't giving it to you either. Well, the Democrats support a study, and they did that in California. Look what came out of that study, right? Nothing. Sabotage the reparations bill. And that's how the Democrat Party feel about Black Americans completely. They don't want you to have reparations. They rather have people that just got here yesterday to get all the money, but they don't want you to have nothing. That's something that's even owed to you. Gavin Newsom just also vetoed a bill to stop Black people from getting their land back. He vetoed a bill. But the Democrats are our friends, though. We supposed to go out and vote Democrat. But yet, the little things they can do, and that's the thing, the little things they can do, small things that could be a gesture to Black people to get Black people. Like, this is how crazy the Democrat Party is today. Most politicians be like, you know what, let me do this so I can get these votes. They don't respect you so much now that they're not even trying to do nothing nice or some gesture to get your vote now. They ain't trying. Because I told you, the Democrat Party has moved on from Black Americans. And this is why Black men have moved on away from them. Now, of course, we got some Black men some of them are there, right? And they can do what they do. Even the Bible teaches that all won't be saved. But you have to think, everybody who's ever done something in life, people have always criticized them. People have always ridiculed them when they say it's another way. You can go all the way back to the Bible where Christ was walking around. People didn't like what he was saying. People ridiculed him. People talked about him and all kind of other things. And then in the end, he was right on everything he said, right? Every great person we've had, even in our community, from Harriet Tubman, people criticized her, didn't agree with her, but in the end, Harriet Tubman was right. You know what I'm saying? Malcolm X, Dr. King, and so many different people, would take issue with some things that we're saying because they are behind the curve. They're not ahead of it. Like what we're trying to be here is ahead of the curve. But the key word to remember today is self-preservation. Open borders and mass amnesty will not pan out too well for Black Americans because we don't have our just due. Remember, we have a wealth gap, racial wealth gap. How do you have a racial wealth gap and then the funds that should be going to you to close the racial wealth gap? Because the Democrats like to mention a racial wealth gap, but they never do nothing to close it. Pay attention to that. Because the only way you can close a racial wealth gap is reparations. That was the only thing that can close it. But they don't want to do that. They say, nah, we're not closing a racial wealth gap. We're going to give all the money that we could have gave to y'all to close it. We're going to give it to migrants because we moved on from y'all. And I told you the Democrat Party is just as Klan as a Republican Party can be Klan. I told y'all that. And the worst part about the Democrat Party is you got a bunch of black faces representing that party. They should be doing something for black Americans, right? So that people can miss me with all that. Listen, when the Democrat Party do reparations, when the Democrat Party show me that they care about black Americans and actually putting tangibles in the hands of black Americans, and then you ain't got to be a part of some secret club, or you got to go to this luncheon and this meeting, and you got to go do this. I'm talking about something that benefit the masses of black Americans. Because sure, you can go join certain groups. Sure, you can get this and that, and sure, you can get certain things. But that doesn't really benefit the masses of black America. That benefits individual black people. And if you want a people group to be good, then you give the masses. Just like there's when the migrants get something, it's not like it was a secret and only a couple of migrants got it and the rest of them did it. No. Notice all the job fairs. Notice all the resources they're getting, right? Notice that. Pay attention to all that, ladies and gentlemen. It was nothing secret about that. They didn't have to do no meetings with the NAACP. They didn't have to do go to a super PAC. They didn't have to do nothing. They didn't even have to vote. So y'all better think about self-preservation in this election. The Democrats are done with black America, and y'all should realize that. And you haven't realized that, you realize.
So this is something Elon Musk said last week that I've been meaning to get to. He says, very few Americans realize that if Trump is not elected, this will be the last election. Okay, there's the fear mongering right there. This will be it. It sounds like a deranged Democrat. If Trump wins, it's the end of democracy. Now here's Elon and so many others, right, that I'm seeing all over social media and saying, if Trump doesn't win, it's the end. It's the end. He says, far from being a threat to democracy, he is the only way to save it. I hate this, guys. I just hate these narratives of this is it. We're doomed. We're doomed. We're not doomed. And when you have that doom mentality, that's how we become authoritarian. When people think this is it, I have to save us or something needs to, it's really doom and gloom. Then they're willing to start, they don't realize it. It happens slowly, but they're willing to start etching away at their own principles, like what we saw with Democrats and free speech and censorship and all of these different things. They'll start to erode away at their own, at the principles they've always been proud to champion. They'll erode all of that in the name of saving something they think is existential. So I caution everybody to adopt that kind of language, like just avoid it. He says, let me explain. Even if 1 in 20 illegals becomes citizens per year, something that Democrats are expediting as fast as humanly possible, that would be about 2 million new legal voters in 4 years. So he's saying all of these illegals that are flooding into the country, if 1 out of 20 of them becomes a citizen per year, which takes 7 years or 10 years to become a citizen. So we're looking now at immigrants that were brought into the country back in, I don't know, like 7 years ago. Who was president? Donald Trump, by the way. So the people that came in under Donald Trump would be maybe eligible to become citizens. Just pointing that out. Not the people that came in under Biden. Is too soon. The voting margin, and also under Obama, that those would be the ones eligible at this point. The voting margin, he says, in the swing states is often less than 20,000 votes. That means if the Democratic Party succeeds, there will be no more swing states. So all of these immigrants come in. If 1 in 20 illegals that came in, many of them under Trump, become voters and they vote Democrat, there will be no more swing states. That'll be it. They're all going to be Democrats. So he says, moreover, the Biden-Harris administration has been flying asylum seekers who are fast-tracked to citizenship directly into swing states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Arizona. It's a surefire way to win every election. That's if these voters vote Democrat. Nobody's saying they have to. Just because they become citizens of this country, at that point, they're free, right? And they're not beholden to any regime or administration. They can vote however the hell they want. If you want those voters, you can go grab them. You literally, the Republicans can go after these voters and persuade them to vote for them. That's how democracy actually works. These people that come in are not signing a contract that they must vote Democrat, otherwise they get deported. I mean, this is just insane. This is the fear mongering I'm talking about. It leads to insanity. He then says, America then becomes a one-party state and democracy is over. The only elections will be the Democratic Party primaries. This already happened in California many years ago following the 1986 amnesty. The only thing holding California back from extreme socialism and suffocating government policies is that people can leave California and still remain in America. Right, people can leave states and they also can vote differently. He says once the whole country is controlled by one party, there will be no escape. Everywhere in America will be like the nightmare that is downtown San Francisco. Okay, like you, Elon. I mean, Elon himself is an immigrant. He's from South Africa. He wasn't born in the United States, and he's not voting Democrat. My Vietnamese family, they're refugees. They came in. They're Republicans. Cubans, they're Republicans. You can actually win these voters over. They're actually yours to go get. That is how democracy actually works. So I don't like these narratives of this is the end of democracy because Trump, if he wins, it's the end. That is real Democrats and is so much brain rot. And now you've got the right, people on the right or people voting right this time saying vote for Trump or else democracy will end. This is causing brain rot because this line of thinking is brain rot. Now, I'm not saying that I'm for all of these illegals becoming citizens. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that even if they do, there is nothing guaranteeing Democrats their votes. You can have their votes too. In fact, libertarians can grab those votes. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., if he starts an independent third party, can grab those votes. A lot of people can grab those votes. Those votes are up for grab. All you've got to do is appeal to them. So then people say, well, they're going to vote for the party that promises them all the free things, right? That's who they're going to vote for. So they're going to vote for Democrats because Democrats promise them all sorts of free things. Historically, immigrants end up working harder and making more money than the people born in America. That's the people who need more free stuff are actually, the multi-generation Americans who no longer have the gumption to go out there and work. You got all these immigrants coming in, like I do. I live in the state of California. Who's coming and fixing my house? It's not some white guy, who's born and bred blue, true American, been here for generations. That's not, and it's not because I won't pay him. He's just not an option. And it's not because I'm hiring illegals. I haven't hired a single, well, there was one time I think the guy might have been, but it was because he was a recommendation from a vendor that we used, and the vendor was totally legitimate and high priced, and we paid him. And suddenly, he recommends a guy, and I'm not 100% certain about that guy. But other than that, we pay premium prices in California for workers. More so, when I talk to my friends that live in other states, they don't pay nearly as much for their home repairs as we do here. So we're not getting cheaper labor, because we're getting these. No, we're paying more. But the people that are showing up are not, blue, true American people that have been here from forever. It's just not who's showing up to do this type of work. And then the people that we see, they're working and they got multiple jobs and they're hustling and they're working on houses in 100-degree heat. I mean, that's just, so the people that are needing more assistance in this country are the ones that are often in they're the lower middle class Americans who are struggling. A lot of the jobs in these small towns throughout America are gone. There's this, the right talks about bringing coal jobs back. It's probably not going to happen. The left talks about just leaving them in the dust and not paying any attention to them because they're deplorables. And that's terrible. We've got to keep our eye on reality of where the real problems are in America, what is causing issues. Certainly, illegal immigration is an issue. If we want to be a sovereign nation, we cannot have people just crossing our borders and not adhering to our laws. We need to know who's coming in. That's just part of being a sovereign nation. So if we're going to be sovereign and we want to have borders, then we need to be enforcing the borders. But we also, and Elon Musk talks about this a lot. We have a population crisis. He's a big proponent of we need to increase population. So here we are, the population is increasing, albeit illegally, and that can be fixed through Congress and through changing how immigration happens in the United States. But how can you be in the same breath against immigration and yet for population increase, and then saying you yourself being an immigrant, my family being immigrants, and saying everyone's going to vote Democrat when neither you, Elon, nor my family are voting Democrat? I mean, this is the type of stuff that causes the brain rot. But furthermore, another thing about Republicans in particular that are going along with this narrative, I want you to look at this. This is a bunch of Lebanese people fleeing. People are fleeing Lebanon, just like what we saw people fleeing Ukraine, people fleeing Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, right? People now are fleeing Israel. People are fleeing. Well, why do they flee? What's creating the refugee crisis? What's creating all of these immigrants coming into America and throughout Europe? And then Europe is being overwhelmed. What is causing that? Well, our wars are largely behind that. So we also can't be Republicans, and I'm not talking about Elon in this breath, I'm talking about Republicans in general, who scream about refugees, especially those coming from the Middle East. They're not like us. They don't have Western values. Our Western values of blowing up children. Like that's okay, but don't blow up our military infrastructure. That's not okay. That's our Western values. They don't share those values. Apparently they have different ones, like they actually like human life or something. I don't know. How can they in one breath say, how dare these people invade our country, come in and change our way of life? Yet they go and they create the crises that cause them to flee, to seek a better life somewhere else. Just people aren't thinking things through or making any sense whatsoever. And we just have to keep our eye on the ball and our head in the game, right? And that is, the immigration issue in the United States is not Donald Trump, by the way. The president doesn't have any real control over that. Some control over border enforcement, but ultimately the immigration laws are an act of Congress. But guess what? Congress keeps pushing it to the president, making it a presidential talking point, an election talking point, when it's really something Congress has to do. It's in their powers. It's not, we don't live in a presidential, we're not like France where the president has much more power. We live in a political system where we have 3 equal branches of government, Congress being one of those equal branches, and they're not doing their job at all when it comes to immigration. It is on them, but they like to point at the president and then nothing gets done. And ultimately it's because they're bought off by the big money interests and the big businesses who want to keep these illegals flowing in, because even though they become legal and many of them become legal workers, many of them don't, but many of them do, they still will work for less money than your average, or I don't even think they're willing to work for less money. I don't think that's actually it. I think some of them certainly are, because they are willing to live differently than, the average American grows up thinking, I want my own home. I want my own apartment. I want my own car. An immigrant doesn't really think like that. My family certainly didn't operate like that. When they came in, we all lived together in one house. Everybody lives together in one big house, multi-generational home. That's the way it is. When I was born, we were living in a house with my grandmother and it's a multi-generational thing. And it still is in my family. And that's a cultural difference. So people can make a little less because they're not thinking I need my own everything. That's one part of it. But another thing is just the desire to do certain jobs. A lot of kids born in America want the computer jobs. They want the white collar jobs. They think that scrubbing toenails, like what my family does, owning nail salons. Yes, we're Vietnamese. Like that's beneath them, or thinking doing these manual labor jobs like roofing or drywall or all of these different things that I've had done to my own home. They think they're above that kind of work. A lot of them do. They want a different type of work. They want to hustle online. They want to, so the desire, and look, I'm not one to talk. Here I am, not doing that kind of work. So, but that's the mentality. So I think there's also a mentality issue. So we have to correct we do have a need for certain labor to be fulfilled here in the United States. We do have a population crisis that's rapidly coming upon us because we're not having enough babies. It's very expensive to have babies, especially when both people have to work and then you have to put them in daycare. And who trusts daycare? A lot of people don't trust daycare. Or they don't want their kid raised by strangers. They want to do it themselves, even if the daycare is perfectly fine. So we've got a lot of problems that we need to fix in our own country that need to be we need to grease the wheels a bit in order to get us to be a fine-tuned machine so that we can operate seamlessly. And we're not. We're kind of this infight. We fight all the time and blame everybody for everything and blame it on the immigrants. It's easy to just blame it on the other. And that's not the way forward. We need to fix the immigration issue. We need to fix the labor issues. We need to fix the moral and ethical issues in this country big time. But one thing that's really not going to help, and my point is on this, is this rhetoric coming from the right suddenly that sounds eerily similar to the rhetoric that has been coming from the left that marched us into this dystopian, damned place that we're in. The left, even because they had so much leftist brain rot, that's how we ended up with the pandemic. They were just doing everything opposite of what Donald Trump said because they hated him so much. And I'm seeing that right now on the right. I'm seeing them just anything opposite of Harris and Biden and anything on the left, even if it's a good idea. I don't want to hear it. It's a bad idea. It's just bad. I'm just going to reject it. That's it, because they suggested it. We're never going to get ahead like this, guys. We're never going to get ahead like this. Thank you so much for watching.
Ohio, Dayton, Cincinnati, Lexington, Burbank, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So James O'Keefe says he talked to this Border Patrol agent. He blows the whistle on the border crisis. My conscience will be clean. That's the way. That's way more important than my pension. You want to hear what he has to say? Let's listen.
And what's important to me is that when my granddaughter is old enough and she's in high school and she comes to me and says, Grandpa, Tata, Aaron, she says, what were you doing? Weren't you in the Border Patrol back then? I can look at her with a straight face and say, baby girl, I was trying. I tried. I fought and I tried. I did my best, and I don't fire me, maybe they will. Maybe after this they will, but my conscience will be clean.
This could clear your conscience so you can live with yourself.
Yeah, that's important. That's way more important than my pension.
Wow. Border Patrol agent Aaron Vecchi has been in the Border Patrol for over 19 years in Tucson sector in Ajo, Arizona. He witnessed atrocities of immigrant children burning up in the desert heat under a makeshift canopy at the Border Patrol station at 150 North Highway in Ajo. He witnessed children freezing in the winter. He even captured never-before-seen videos that he provided to us, which we are publishing here. In the film Line in the Sand, coming out October 10th, a Border Patrol agent blows the whistle and made reference to people like Aaron, who get retaliated against for speaking up.
And when agents speak up, they're buried by management.
Buried by
I know a
management.
few whistleblowers that got toasted. They try to do what's right, laughed at, ostracized,
Really?
buried.
Inspired by the actions of the Border Patrol agent in the film, Aaron decided to take us on location to his Border Patrol station, stand right outside the canopy, and while employed with only 9 months left before he receives his pension, to tell the American people the truth about the horrors he witnessed and why he's doing this.
I've been a Border Patrol agent since 2005. I first got worried. I first felt compelled to file whistleblower complaints because I saw people being mistreated, or at least their rights being violated at the station. And where I first saw it was here underneath that canopy there. But it was just men, women, and children. They weren't segregated at all. They were freezing. It was at least 40 degrees. You got 50 Muslims, 50 Sikhs, 50 Christians, 50 whatever, and they're fighting over shade. And they're going to have a mass casualty event inside our parking lot. I said this to the patrol agent in charge, begged him to get shade. I told him it's going to be 115 degrees or 110 degrees easily by June. We're obviously violating their civil rights. There's court orders that say we can't keep these people like this. We've got too many people in the building already.
It sounds like this is a humanitarian issue.
Yeah, I believe it.
You're not coming from it from a political
No,
issue.
not at all. Not at all. Not at all. But I realized after my supervisor, he told me if I don't put people in there, if I don't continue to overcrowd this facility, I would be guilty of dereliction of duty. And that's when I realized
That you would be guilty.
I would be guilty of dereliction of duty. Yes, I would be guilty of dereliction.
This was your supervisor.
Yes, that was even higher than a supervisor. That's middle management.
He also brought it to the attention of OSC, Office of Special Counsel, and filled out these forms detailing wrongdoing. Ultimately, Aaron received a cease and desist letter asking him to stop talking about what he witnessed.
I know that what they've been forcing us to do is wrong.
What kind of an operation creates a cease and desist order towards a man sharing his experience? It's pretty simple, actually. The kind of operation that doesn't want to be found out because it traffics in drugs and humans. Maybe that.
Obviously.
I believe that from the moment I first saw it, and them telling me when I asked them directly who's ordering this, and they can't tell me. They tell me it's coming from higher up. They tell me it's coming from sector, and I ask specifically, I want to know the name of the person who said, I can violate this order that a judge ordered. We can't do this here. Who said that we can do this? And they refuse to answer. They will look at me like a deer caught in headlights, and they refuse. And they'll say, just get out there and do it. It's on us. They've had us take the jackets from breastfeeding women in 30, 40, 50 degree weather, whatever. They're shivering. They come from Ecuador. They come from equatorial regions of the world. It rains here in the wintertime. A lot of people don't know that, but it rains, and they'll be sleeping in the puddles. You know, you see it every day. Every day. These women from Central America, they will be clean. They'll hold their babies. They've got no strength left, and they're holding on to these children with every little bit just while they're talking to us. And they're so despondent. And we're despondent. We're wrecked. We're wrecked. It's 100 degrees at midnight. And we're wrecked. And management, nowhere to be found. I've not seen middle management down there. I personally haven't seen middle management down there one time. If you come in and shake the tree, you'll find bad fruit. There's stuff going on here. We stopped deterring. We completely surrendered the border. The cartels run the border down here. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Operationally, we work as hard as they want.
I mean, it sounds bad to say that cartels run the border, but that just means the CIA runs the border.
Oh, we're in good hands.
Yeah. I mean, using the word cartel, it's such a racist phrase, isn't it? These are just freelance entrepreneurs who run a farmer's market-like operation, but instead of produce, they sell people.
I like to call them CIA contractors myself.
Yeah. Here we go.
That's the word. If they have 1,000 bodies for us, as fast as they can bring us bodies, we pick them up as fast and we push them all into this parking lot. That's the orders pretty much. We can have 4 agents down there and we're just exhausted. The people are exhausted, and management will go bring a couple buses. Come on, we got to go. And we're like, where are we taking them? We already got 600 people in this parking lot. You know, I would like to appeal to my partners to speak out. It kills me. It's been one of the biggest pains of my career to know that so many good men are sitting on the sidelines on this. They have pushed us around through fear, through browbeating us. They've ordered us to do stuff. I have watched more of my partners, I think in this last couple of years, have relationship breakups. I think more have talked about issues with, quite frankly, drinking more than they have in a long time. I've seen my best friend cry, and I've never seen that before, crying about this.
About the humanitarian
Yeah,
use?
just everything, just the whole thing. I've had guys in that have as much time as I have in or close, and they've served in Afghanistan, and they just can't believe that they've served their country only to just watch the floodgates open. And they're like, what did I go serve for if we're just going to do this stuff? And a lot of guys warn me, hey, Becky, you don't want to do this now. You got your pension. You're going to retire. Just cruise, just coast, you know? I can't do that. This is wrong. This is wrong. When you have bureaucrats, when you have management can force law enforcement officers through threat of us losing our livelihoods, our homes, maybe our marriages, they can use that fear to coerce us into violating other people's rights or violating our oaths of office. If anybody who knows me knows I'm not doing this for fame and fortune. I've been on a bit of a warpath here with this. I'm really thoroughly disgusted by the behavior of management, quite frankly, and my agency right now. Quite frankly, it's the biggest threat facing our nation, in my opinion. Whether you're politically leaning left or politically leaning right, if you believe that there's some sort of totalitarian experience headed your way, I can tell you right now, bureaucrats are forcing law enforcement to violate laws, violate oaths of office, do things that are contrary to the American citizens' best interests, do things that are contrary to the best interests of these people coming here, you know? So yeah, I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Because it's the right thing to do. If we let these bureaucrats force the enforcers, law enforcement, right? Essentially, we're the ones, they're going to order us. If they can order us and tell us, go put your boot on the neck of those people. And wait, we're not supposed to be doing that. No, shut up and do it, or you're going to lose your station in life. That's a dangerous place to be in for this country. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, that's a really bad spot to be in right now. And I don't want any part of it. And I just implore my partners, people to speak up and speak the truth, if that's what they've been having us do.
So it seems to be like this was the problem that AOC was complaining about when Trump was president, and that nobody complains about since. In fact, they opened
cages now.
In fact, they opened the borders wide open, and flooding the country with, and the cartels are running the border. That's what he said, right?
Yeah, I'm just thinking every fuckwit liberal friend of mine that thinks it's like, oh, they just need to come here and work as my maid, and what do you not want me to be able to get a maid? That's how they fucking think. It's actually enraging. They don't even have cages to put the kids in. They gotta be out.
They don't even have cages anymore.
Not even shade. Great job.
This is a manufactured problem by the economic hitmen in the United States. They create these people, they make them desperate through economic sanctions, overthrowing their governments. And then they open the border wide open, and then he says, bringing these atrocities to the attention of the Office of Special Counsel. Vecchi filed reports detailing the violations, only to be met with a cease and desist letter ordering him to stay silent. Despite being ordered to remain silent, Vecchi is sacrificing his future for justice.
Yeah, well, once everybody let Julian Assange get tortured for those years and didn't think about it, it's coming back to you. All the shit that you didn't speak up about is coming down on you. It's going to get to you sooner or later. His
conscience is stronger than the lure of his pension.
Dude, if you're just keeping your head down for your pension, you're such a punk. I mean, that's good for that guy, but like, it's really like despicable that that's the only guy.
Someone should have made Kamala the border czar so she could fix this with her amazing leadership.
Maybe Tim Walz could fix up some white guy tacos for the people.
Yeah.
See attached Aaron Vecchi's formal government wrongdoing disclosure and the cease and desist he'd received from U.S. Customs and Border Protection.
Dude, cops ratting out the government is one of the greatest, noblest things that I can think of there is, you know?
Yeah.
Rat out your superiors. That's the greatest service you could do for everyone.
Hey, come see us do stand-up comedy.
Cultfigga. Follow me.